Yo, ¿qué pasa, chavales? Hoy os traigo el segundo partido del grupo B, vaya. Hoy os traigo Uni Warriors versus Solar Scarabs. La verdad es que las partidas estuvieron muy sexys. No me esperaba nada de este set, la verdad, y me sorprendió para bien. Os recuerdo que tanto Solar Scarabs como los Uni Warriors pues quedaron sextos y séptimos. La verdad es que no dieron su mejor nivel en la fase de grupos. He de decir que los Solar Scarabs sí que me gustaron muchísimo más como estuvieron jugando. La verdad es que se merecían ganar algún set dentro de la SPL. Sí es cierto que solo ganaron contra Valkyrias y perdiendo una partida. Pero la verdad que rapiñaron bastante games a equipos top. Y los Oni Warriors más de lo mismo. Aunque creo que los Scarabs estuvieron jugando mejor. Así que nada, chavales, os dejo este set. La verdad es que estuvo bastante guapo. Y nada, espero que lo disfrutéis. Y nos vemos durante esta semana con el último día de la fase de grupos. Un besito y adiós. Lo estoy viendo muy fresco al Trelli en lo de la SML. No sé por qué no está en la SPL, tío. Supongo que es porque no le quieren pagar. No le quieren pagar.
Well, picks and bans for game number 1. The Oni Warriors are your first pick team. And immediately, it seems they've been doing their homework.
Y yo, qué cojones, tío.
Scream is a threat. And they go
no me pongas eso en el chat, hermano. Recapacita, por favor.
The Tsukuyomi banned out by them, alongside the Cthulhu for the Warriors. Solar Scarabs get rid of the Odin. And it feels like, at least Cthulhu Odin, as of right now in this week, very standard. The Tsukuyomi is definitely a shot.
Yeah, that's just only Scream that's playing that at that level that's worthy of a ban. So, and I think the Warriors are right to do so. You're in first pick position, you can get yourself a priority god this way, and you take a really good god out of Scream's hands. I like that option. Pretty telling that they banned Cthulhu in first pick, as, you know, anytime a team is banning away a traditional first pick when they're in that position, now with Geb, you know, these are gods that the Scarabs were probably likely to take away from you if given the opportunity. So the Warriors coming in with a pretty set strategy that doesn't involve two top guardians in their roles is something that I think the Scarabs should make note of as the set goes on.
Yeah, knowing that Cthulhu's gone, Geb's gone, and, you know, Cthulhu, I could hear Nika saying how much he doesn't want to play another guardian, right? Like, that's an argument I understand to an extent. Neil likes Geb.
Favorito para este set. Hombre, a ver qué hace Nika, ¿no? Estoy esperando que haga un Arturito ahí bien sexy. No es por racismo ni nada, pero estos canales de Oni están blanquísimos. No sé si ahí donde viven está nublado siempre, están en NA, cabrón. Hostia, la cam, perdón, tío. Pues toma, una Artio Field Pick. Con dos cojones.
And I like the Sylvanas up against it. You know, it doesn't have CC immunity, root, pull, alt. That RDO is going to end up falling pretty quickly. And an early Ola run pick here for the Scarabs. So now the question becomes, who is playing this? Is it in the mid lane for Baronic or is it in the duo lane? I think we've only seen it in duo so far, but if he's playable, he's probably playable enough in the mid lane.
Yeah, that's the cool thing about Sanctified Fields, right? It's just kind of good wherever you drop it.
Oh, yeah.
And usually, actually in mid, it might be even better because there's usually more people over there that you can make suffer with that time dilation. The Sylvanas alongside it, this is something that the Scarabs locked in a lot.
Boronic no usa el teclado, tiene los números de las habilidades en el mouse, lo dijo cuando fue a jugar en el set. Bueno, eso explicaría por qué es el peor medio de la SPL. Y perfectamente, Angry es mejor, Sapling es mejor, Basking es mejor. Bueno, el Benicu no sé si es mejor o no, porque el Benicu es bastante retraído en cuanto a los picks. ¿Y quién es el otro medio, el que ha ganado? El del equipo del Dude Mambro. ¿Cómo se llamaba?
My memory might be failing. I am a part of that Smite Boomers Club.
Ah, no, el Neihu estaba haciendo mierda, ¿verdad?
Okay. Well, if I have to be 30, then I'm not in it yet, but I'm fast approaching.
Zap and Barra both 30? Didn't they turn 30 like this year?
Yes, they are both 30. So, but I'm not quite a part of that quite yet. Mifflin is laughing at me, and that makes me very sad. But Baronic loved to play this Charybdis. His team was saying, we think Charybdis sucks. Baronic was like, let me take it, and let me show you how it's done. it should be Olorun mid Charybdis duo. I think that is nearly unequivocal. But it could be Olorun ADC and Charybdis mid if that's the direction the Scarabs want to go.
And you know what? Keep them on their toes, right? Having the swap potential like that makes things all more.
¿Te refieres a que estén viviendo en Europa o que sean de Europa? Porque si son de Europa, Nika supongo. Y si están en Europa, pues supongo el terror, ¿no?
I mean, RDO, you can cancel her dash. It's pretty easy to cancel that dash.
Estilo Julio.
You needed some team fight presence because you have 2 single target gods in Olorun and Charybdis. Hades brings you that. You got Sanctified Field on top of that ultimate.
Puto Hades.
Pretty good. I don't know. I'm trying to talk myself into it.
We were casting, I think, the last set that he was locked in. Me and you were.
Ay, un Artio solo, tío. Nika, te odio.
Yeah, it's broken. You get an insane amount of prots. It should be illegal how many prots you get. But the reality is that late game,
hostia, Dardes con Sol. O sea, Dardes con Uller. Pero Dardes con Uller con Ping. Uff.
Yeah, shoutouts to the end of, what was it, end of phase 2, maybe beginning of phase 3, the Fafnir Soul Uller were the combo. Actually, it's Fafnir Soul, throw me a hunter, I don't care. They were very happy with that. And it seems like they'll be happy. Serket as well, a god that has been treating Cubo Fred very well. This feels like a really
Sí que se te ha pasado el Arian, tío. Muy mal, hermano.
They've got good CC, they've got good teamfight presence, at least in terms of a little bit of AoE for this Soul. Overall, their objective pressure is really good. Their objective security is okay because of the Soul ultimate. I love what the Oni Warriors have.
Me confío con los 15 minutos. Ten en cuenta, hermano, que han tardado muchísimo, tío, en empezar los PC ones.
They might be able to just ignore him and kill everyone else around him instead.
It's definitely going to be a tall order for them. Depends on where Olorun goes. If it's mid, that's a very immediate problem they're going to have to face. If it's over there in the duo lane for Stewart, it might take a little bit longer. And this is the second time that we're getting to see, or I guess third time we're going to see a Gilgamesh today, which I will admit has caught me off guard of all the gods I had in my list that I expected. I will say the Scarabs have knocked me out of the park. Hades and Gilgamesh weren't on that list.
Yeah, I certainly not Hades. Gilgamesh, Scream loves this pick. Played it really well, but I don't love it up against what we see from the Warriors.
Hades es buena mierda versus Artio, ¿no? Se la van a follar por todos lados. Creo que Hades estaba bien contra Artio. Pero bueno, es un puto Hades, es una basura. ¿A quién le vas en este match? Oni Warrior, supongo, porque Scarabs ha decidido piquear a Hades.
And admittedly, not only picking it, but then doing well on it most of the time as well. So it all seems to lock up here. It feels like, and this is my bad because I've been watching a lot of Men in Black very recently because I've got it open in the green room.
Did.
And it feels like New Hotness versus Old and Busted, except Old and Busted is using like 2021 Busted, not 2002 Busted. Like, this is good for the Warriors. I mean, does the Olorun, the Charybdis, the Sylvanas, hell, the Hades, does that make it work?
I mean, both these teams shred objectives. So whatever team gets that positional advantage around these Gold Furies, these Fire Giants, these towers, they
no han cambiado el orden de los nombres o Nail será solo. Es que la última vez jugaron de esa manera. Oye, en serio, ¿quién carajo es este?
Game number 1, remember, best of 5s for all of these. And what feels like a very important set between the Scarabs and the Warriors. Group B has already started off to an explosive start with the Titans and the Bolts. We'll see who is going to be able to take game number 1 here. So we jump over to Dave and Mifflin.
Un early gank,
yeah. He said, you know, we're not super worried about this matchup against the Solar Scarabs, but make no mistake, if every game in this group goes according to the seedings, who are we kidding? That's probably not going to happen. This would decide the third and final team that ends up going on through if the Oni Warriors can't beat any of the other two teams, if the Solar Scarabs can't beat either of the other two teams.
Mejoras ADC actualmente para ti.
Uller
y Zanami.
Holy, you know? The gift that keeps on giving is the meta shifts we're seeing early on here in the group stages. Soul has been very popular. So has
la composición Oni Warriors.
Dave, I've done a lot of homework to prep for the group stages.
Bueno, a ver qué hace Boronic con Caribdis medio.
I really wanted to figure out exactly what we could
Verás.
expect to see coming into this weekend, and
los players, pues Pandacat, Netroid y el Cyclone.
This is all new to me. This is news. I think the Solar Scarabs, they've come with something that can work. Their team fight is pretty scary. Maybe one of the worst parts of Charybdis' kit is her inability to consistently land the ultimate. But with all this CC lockdown between Sanctified Field,
y encima Bancroft al 2.
even the ultimate from inbound could make it a little bit easier for
Pasa,
Boronic
Juanillo.
to find these impactful ultimates, especially going towards some early scaling. Maybe we see a Transcendence pickup. We talked about it yesterday. Charybdis' ultimate hits hard. Might as well just be a solo ult as far as damage is concerned. So I think it could work out in mid. I'm excited to see how this one goes.
Got a couple of wins yesterday for Cyclone Spin and the Tartarus Titans. Charybdis did. And the storyline with Charybdis yesterday was we saw it once for Zap earlier on in this phase, very defensive. Cyclone Spin flipped that script yesterday. We've seen what Charybdis can do in an offensive state. Those ultimates, the stun in particular, was super impactful in a lot of those fights. So expectations heightened, I think, for Charybdis in this.
Antes daba Viewer Point de Smite en cuanto lo pusieron.
Buffs, if you want to call them that, which we do.
We do.
Pues está jugando tan pasivo el Hades. Bueno, yo tampoco sé por qué, porque ellos sabían que la Serked estaba por la izquierda, pero bueno, supongo que es porque no querría tampoco pokearse mucho.
This was a kind of niche pick reserved for what felt like Fino K last year, but watch out, Dardes jumping over the wall is Scream here, but disapparated enough to keep that solo alive. There's a pull on
Whoa.
and the root on the other end, but tanky enough is that Fafnir. He will leap on out. But Hades solo, a pick that I was saying sort of reserved for Fino K here and there, but I think SOT's got to be in that conversation of
Algo que le puede igualar a Hades en la línea.
More eclectic
No.
picks out of this lane and sometimes makes them work. So I think I've got heightened expectations around that lane as well.
We're not without data on Hades solo, and we know Mogal has taken this pick a couple of times over in the European SCC, but it's got decent scaling. The survivability that you gain from Pillars of Agony is just...
Y yo, Alberto, ¿qué estás diciendo? ¿Cómo que Izana ni Wapuch, tío?
Lack of defense that I'm expecting to see from SOT, already reflected in his build, could be a Bancroft's Talon in this very first slot. I'm excited to see it go, but Aggro's already highlighting how you've got decent matchup.
Lleva mucho sin jugar.
The dash as well as the channel
Una Nubis.
third ability, Dardes. Again, taking some damage, but that's a soul. I'm not even
¿Qué hacía cuando te tocaba contra un Nubis solo? Quejarme todo el
On
streaming.
the other side, a lot of his aggression comes off of the
Estuvo mejor que bote.
Mario stops
Nah.
that in its tracks. A lot of his survivability and a lot of the benefit that he has is just the ability to out-sustain in lane, and he's got that still, but Artio matches a little bit of that sustain, has a more consistent damage output as well as faster rotations. SOT is going to play very on point if he wants value from this pick.
Yeah, playing cautiously around heaping praise on the Hades before it's due. It's got to prove it to us here in game number 1 at least. I do think it's a worthwhile conversation to have, Myth. Maybe right now, but especially as this set goes on. Best of 5 in the Solar Scarab specifically, because over phase 3, they have pushed every single team, what feels like every single team, except for the Oni Warriors, who beat the Scarabs 2-0 in phase 3, to 3-game sets. The Scarabs would lose game 1, win game 2, lose game 3. It's a totally different look now, and so the adaptations of the Solar Scarabs team, especially after game 3, if they're able to take game 1, game 2, game 3, if you're splitting some games.
Ayer dijiste que Stuart es mejor que Zamban, ¿por qué? No. ¿Qué dices?
As this set goes on. But not surprising maybe that early on in the set, game 1 specifically in a longer best of 5, we see some of these more unique picks.
Yeah, this is a good time to find your heat check, and if this doesn't work out for the Solar Scarabs, we know they've got plenty of picks they can fall back towards as SOT.
Cuidar de Juan con Bing aún. Sí, señor.
The skirmish on the duo side of the map does force out the beads from Vote. Neilma holds on to the ultimate as well as the Heavenly Sprint. It's invades on both sides. Maybe the only Warriors want to step into this blue buff, but Cubo Fred doesn't love his odds.
So if there's a game 2 curse, is I think what we've kind of coined it as. Does that shift in like one game further down in a like does it become a game 3 curse when you're in a best of 5, or is game 2 no matter how long the set is?
Game 2 is legitimately game 2 no matter what, right?
Right. I mean,
suppose
the distance
so.
in the set though, like game 2 and a best of 3, If you lose that one,
you're in a poor position. Yeah,
Right.
Va a ver Barcelona versus a la vez. Lo estoy grabando. Siempre ando a ver el primer gilipollas que me haga spoiler. Son todos de los de Oni. No, el Neiruma es de Canadá.
no, and you know, we joke about it a little bit. And SOT not joking here as Cubo Fred jumps on the solo lane. Ultimate in from SOT, but that's just drawing damage right to his doorstep. Nearly turns it around on the Cubo. But not enough, and Cubo Fred will walk away with first blood. Scream, the first blood, the kill participation king for the Solar Scarabs makes his way to
Ya, ha
right.
jugado como muy lento el Scream, ¿no? Ha hecho el combo como... Ha hecho los combos muy lentos. La verdad. Que Nika hubiese llegado a la solo de Leviatanes hubiese sido mucho mejor.
But that survivability almost got him out of that situation. Had he got his leap off and was able to hit the wave with it, likely would have just healed up for 40-50% of his HP and maybe even turns around that engagement. SOT looks like he's going to be a threat if he's able to get a little bit of defense online before he falls too far behind. One level lead for Nika does not bode well.
Yeah, especially not Nika on Ardio for all the reasons you listed before, but also it's Nika on Ardio, and that tends to be a pretty stalwart.
¿Alguna vez jugaste de solo? Alguna vez, sí.
Been quiet over in the mid lane. Maybe, you know, you look at some hunters that go to mid.
Lo que aporta Zap es la experiencia y calls. A Leviatanes se les veía calls de mierda en todos los lanes. Bueno. Supongo que a corto plazo sí es mejor pillar al Zapas antes que al Stuart, por ejemplo. Con Nika hubiesen tenido muchísima más calidad y sí, vale, no tiene la gran experiencia y vasto conocimiento del juego de Zapas, pero igual creo que hubiese sido mejor para ellos.
And we've seen Izanami once or twice. What's the common thread between every single one of those hunter picks?
I don't know, I hope you'll tell me that.
Incredibly high pressure. You don't have that with Charybdis. It is the survivability.
Potenciando un Silvanus en partidas super élites, el healing. No pilla Silvanus para otra cosa. No sirve para nada.
Especially in a lane like mid, can lose you out a lot of neutral farm. Those right and left
sides. O sea, literalmente no sirve para nada. Los pulls no los puedes tener como win condition. Los roots, vale, los roots están bien. Y la ulti está bien, pero picha, para tirar esa ulti, cógete el 2 de Kep. Pero lo coges para el healing y la presión early en wave. Ya está, no hay más.
Wow!
¡Ah!
And immediately flips it around, and it is going to get
what a pull
for the Oni Warriors. Neoma joins the fray a
good
little bit. Stun out from Veronica in the mid lane. Transformation.
Gallardo irá al Barça según el as. No, gracias. ¿Qué expectativas tiene el Barça a la vez? Hombre, como perdamos contra a la vez, ya no sé, bicho.
Just can't be bad. Cubo Fred stuck inside of that tier 1 tower, dies to what I believe was an archer shot. And then from there, the Solar Scarabs.
Tío, qué ganqueo más raro del Cubo Fred, cómo se ha notado el... Cómo se ha notado el...
But unfortunately it was Neoma, or unfortunately for Neoma, it was him. And that's the Solar Scarabs, their third kill of the game.
The Oni Warriors fighting from a deficit and suddenly the right side of the map.
¿Qué hace el Cubo? Cómo se ha notado el ping, tío.
Cubo Fred was here and he was simply farming. The Solar Scarabs will dispel him from his own jungle. And let's take a look back at exactly what happened.
Y yo, una cosa, para mis fans del fútbol, chavales.
Oh, he wanted Neil. So sick.
Looking towards Neil, grabs the pole. And then that's that stun, right? Such a long
habéis estado viendo el Icardi con la mujer y demás, en plan, todo el chisme que ha habido y eso. ¿Lo habéis estado viendo?
All the credit to SOT there as well, because he has absorbed a lot of pressure that the Oni Warriors have put there.
He has. Cubo, Fred, and Nika put a heavy emphasis.
Sí la habéis estado viendo, ¿no? Es que he visto que le han borrado la cuenta, ¿no?
Finds the lead in his own right, gets some of that survivability online in that second slot. Mirrored builds between SOT and Nika right now.
¿Por qué le han borrado la cuenta?
We'll see if SOT likes to go for maybe a Sundering Axe later on as Cubo Fred caught out.
Man, Cubo Fred has just been getting bullied over the last couple of minutes. That's ult down from Scream. You're playing from ahead, why not? Give it a go. You got Jotun's Wrath to start off, and then Shogun's Kusari after that for Scream. So you get some defense there, Myth. But I guess when you're playing with this double hunter, one magical, one standard, you want to get as much of that attack speed aura out as you can. Give Scream and his team a nice little boost early in the game.
Could be. I like this style. Scream going for a slightly more facilitator role. It could have
Alicardi,
been
Alicardi.
I haven't been keeping track of his rotations.
point.
Alicardi le han borrado la cuenta. ¿Por qué?
This kind of works.
En plan, ¿qué ha hecho?
Going forward, but if that's the case, I mean, it's just an infusion of 600 gold into his build, which is going to push him even further ahead. It synergizes incredibly well with the team, as you already highlighted. I'm excited to see how this one pans out.
Pero he visto que ha habido un lío y tal, no sé, parece que Alicardi se ha zumbado otra. O yo qué sé.
Kivo Fred appears to be the objective. Damage taken numbers off the charts for Kivo Fred over the last few minutes. And you can tell this game already starting to feel a little bit awkward for the circuit.
Yo digo que Wanda le dijo que la borrara. No sé, pero ya no tiene Instagram. Alicardi.
The slight overextension under the tier 1 tower where Sot turns around the kill, and then another couple kills fall from that where Kivo Fred is just kind of throwing his hands up.
Síntoma que lo dominan.
Right side of the map. In the meantime, though, Myth, the dual lane has just been left alone entirely. Vote and Stewart have just been chilling over here.
O sea, creo que Alicardi se zumbó a una tía y luego pues se arrepintió y no sé qué, no sé cuánto, y como que estaba haciéndole un poquillo la cama a la Wanda, ¿no? En plan, estaba lamiéndole un poco las botas. Y la Wanda no sé por qué ha vuelto con él, o yo qué coño no sé, y ahora de repente ya no tiene cuenta de Instagram. El Alicardi. No sé. Era un tío, vale.
Not only is he bringing a no-play zone ultimate, he's bringing heals to your team fight, decent CC, and great objective shred.
That is good damage onto Baronic. Largely sent there by Dartez. Early lifesteal build for Dartez out of mid. Wonder then if that gets answered at all by the
Son solo amigos, tío.
Kivo Fred has some anti-heal built on in there. Gonna need it for inbound at least. Beads off of Stewart as Kivo Fred finds a way to get active, and Myth as a jungler, that's the best you can do, right? Your ganks don't work out for a little while on right. You gotta find a way to get some value on the map, and that's what Kivo Fred does here. Opens up the door.
La roba.
Warriors, Gold Fury nearly taken away by Baronic. But the Oni Warriors this
Subió una story con Wanda en la cama después de zumbar poniendo que no decías que no sé qué y Wanda la habrá denunciado. Pero si están juntos ahora, cabrón, yo eso lo vi. Que la Wanda subió una story con un tío. O sea, creo que era con él, ¿no? En plan... Y el Icardi le puso algo en plan... como reprochándole que por la noche cuando se siente sola va con él, no sé qué, no sé cuánto. Y que después no, ¿sabes? Aquí hay un lío, hermano, montado, ¿sabes? Yo me quedo calvo, tío. Icardi o Luke de Jong. Hombre, prefiero a Luke de Jong porque los dos son igual de basura y por lo menos cobra menos. Pero bueno, como prefiero ninguno, la verdad. Sí, sí, parece una telenovela. Trueque entre Agüero y Cardi, no gracias. Luke de Tronc. Vaya por Dios. Y Terry, sí, bueno, la de Terry que se zumbó a la mujer de uno de sus mejores amigos. Eso ya es otra fumadota.
And that is maybe the most active we've seen anyone in the Mist. No, that's a lie. We saw, what, day one, an attempted team fight out of the Mist. Didn't result in much, but hopefully, Myth, as the group stages roll on, the Mist gets a little bit more active.
Maybe.
Wanda le pilló cuando chateaba Hotmap vídeos y fotos con una llamada a la China Suárez. Esa me suena, la he visto. Y ahí saltó la polémica. Luego ya se miró el historial de Icardi que tuvo resbalón contra Bestis. ¿Qué dice, cabrón?
Is pretty easy to check those situations. The game now kind of slowing down a little bit. Not much left to fight over. Both neutral objectives removed from the map, and neither team at a point where they can feel confident looking for.
No sé, hay mucho rollito por ahí, ¿sabes? Cosas raras.
Make the rotation over towards the dual lane, forces the beads off of Stewart, and those beads have come back up with little opposition. The Solar Scarabs ADC very happy with the pace so far. And it seems like the Scarabs have made the active decision to play on the opposite side of the map of Stewart. Every single time they get aggressive, it's around this soul lane because they want to keep the Oni Warriors as far away from the long
Icardi se une a la cassette, tío, Odegaard. Es verdad, tío, que la cassette y el Odegaard aparentemente estuvieron follando en las instalaciones del Arsenal. Me quedo calvo, tío. La verdad, que me importa una mierda, ¿sabes? Pero me refiero, loco, no lo puedes hacer en tu casa, tío, ¿sabes? Vaya pavos, tío.
Geometry, oh my god.
Let's get right back into it. Game 1 of this set. That's fantastic. Stonefall has been very popular right through the uprights. Goes inbound on his pull. Sot's got one, Stewart's got one, Nika's got
Entre
one.
ellos,
At least
sí.
up to this point. Darda is looking maybe a little bit more.
Bueno, no sé si son gays o no, la verdad me da igual.
I think, though,
Pero...
because it's
Pero eso salió, tío, en varios periódicos deportivos.
in the breastplate for Sot, so it looks like maybe a little bit hybrid. for the
Yo la
safety
casi
of
todas
Soul.
las casas.
A couple of Stonefalls allow you to do
Vaya
that
pavos,
here,
tío, pero ¿a quién se le ocurre,
a little
tío?
extra tankiness for Stewart.
¿A quién
Maybe
carajo
Sot
se le
maybe
ocurre,
opens
tío?
up a little bit into a little bit of extra bruiserness, or is the item just that good that you want it on anyone anyway?
I think the item is
Una trola de un fan del Chelsea. Cabrón, si me dices del Tottenham, pero del Chelsea.
Nika goes for this item because he realizes
Blanc.
I land 2, 3 autos, I'm essentially unkillable in some of these team fights. This lane that we're looking at, the short lane right now, this has become a wet noodle lane because of Stonefall almost exclusively. Sure,
Que ya poco se hará el nivel 17 del Solar Troll,
against SOT's damage output, but neither one of these guys can really put threat onto each other. I think as long as it's a 1v1 in solo, we don't see either of them drop below 90% HP.
No sé si es musulmán o no, Larian, la verdad.
In a 2v1,
Que esté mal visto, pues evidentemente 2021 que una persona gay esté mal vista, pues es jodido, pero... Yo qué sé, hermano.
A little bit more under risk considering not the most physical defense stacked just yet, and Scream does a lot of damage, has decent CC lockdown. So as long as SOT
O sea, el problema es que estuvieron zumbando en las instalaciones del campo, tío. A mí me importa una mierda que sea... Yo qué sé, tío. Como si te teniendo una orgía, ¿sabes? Me da igual. Sí, sí, por eso he dicho supuestamente. Pero vamos, yo qué sé, tío. Bumba Hades tiene pintaza, ¿no? Porque no se ha hecho ningún starter. Quizás te hace un Vampiric con Bancroft al 1. O empiezas Bancroft 2 para hacerte de último un Bumbas o algo así, ¿no? Pero bueno.
Sometimes an indicator that the Scarabs or whoever's team solo is over here wants to start up the Fury, but doesn't look like that's the case, and both teams happy with turning their eyes towards mid.
Sí que lo vi, gordo.
A lot of damage.
Plenty of damage down from Dardes though. And down underground goes Baronic, and out the other side he'll end up half HP.
Baronic has crit, death toll, and an Aussie, so just needs to clear out like one camp.
Ojo.
To be able to heal up, but that opportunity might not arise.
Stuart haz algo. Stuart haz algo.
Stuart!
¡Stuart!
Stuart looks like he's the one who takes this away. The Solar Scarabs get it nonetheless. And it is Stuart with
Ya me dirás tú cómo cojones los Oni Warriors no bloquean el 1 del Olorum.
And the Scarabs make a big play, come up with the Fury steal.
Dave, you know I gotta say it, man. Focus light, similar to Fafnir.
Para mí eso no debería ser noticia. Una cosa, hermano, es que esté mal visto y otra cosa es... O sea... Le da muchísima visibilidad, tío, a la peña que no... O sea, loco, tú a saber cuánta peña hay que no ha salido todavía del armario, ¿sabes? Y son... Porque los miren de alguna manera u otra, ¿sabes? Yo creo, o sea, a ver... Yo opino que sí que debe ser noticia, ¿no? Quizás el jugador que lo hizo no es el más mediático. Pero vamos. Claro, cabrón.
I don't want to call it a spiral, but
A mí no me podría dar más igual. O sea, vosotros estáis diciendo que os da igual que una persona sea gay o no, ¿sabes? Pero que una persona admita que es gay en un entorno tan heterosexual como el fútbol, donde casi todos piensan que está aquí todo el mundo, claro, lo que ha dicho Miguel, ¿no? Que es de machitos, tío, que todo el mundo son heteros, no sé qué.
I want to see a rotation from the Solar Scarabs sooner than later to this
A mí me parece bien,
I
¿no?
think to that point, Miff, does this feel like a bit of a different look at the Solar Scarabs? It feels like, you know, at this point, in the games we've seen the Solar Scarabs in Phase 3, Scream, maybe most notably.
Aquí mucho juegan Loki, una cosa es admitirle, otra cosa es no decirlo.
We're feeling out how this early
Ya.
game is gonna go.
Y mega gays y demás, no pasa nada, ¿sabes? En plan, no os preocupéis. Globo con lava.
It's a much more patient playstyle from both of these teams, but specifically the Solar Scarabs, you could see it. Scream generally likes to play that hyper carry role. He's the kill participation master.
Es verdad, ello, ¿qué ha pasado con el Mendy, tío? ¿Qué ha pasado con el Mendy? ¿Hasta cuándo tenía que quedarse en la cárcel? Creo que era mitad de noviembre, ¿no? Algo así. ¿O me lo he inventado?
He's going to be just sticking around in these team fights, making sure that his team is stronger and the enemy team is a little bit weaker as far as attack speed is concerned. So, I like this difference from the Solar Scarabs.
Y yo, ya no tiene ni Insta.
We haven't seen a 5-on-5 engagement. Baronic on this Charybdis has not gotten involved as of yet. Not a whole lot of damage output. Take a peek at the damage from the Hunters, by the way. Both Stewart and Vote sitting below 600.
Neomod drop kicked against the wall by Scream. It's a fear out from Cubo Fred.
¿Qué pasó con Mendy? Que al parecer... pues bueno, tiene varios asaltos de... varios cargos de asalto sexual y violaciones a varias mujeres.
SOT in and out of the mist. Will not look for anything any further. Cubo Fred and Dardes group up, knock down a tier 1 tower in mid, so a small golden fusion.
Insultando a Ropiper. Nada, le echa posta, le echa posta.
Around the backside, Solar Scarab starting up the fire giant here. Shogun's Kusari.
La Balú lo respetas, ¿ves? Que no pasa nada, tío. 2021, ¿sabes? Que no hay ningún problema. ¡Ay, el bote se escapa! Se ha escapado el puto bote, tío. Tío, qué partida más lenta en cuanto a kills, ¿no? Los Solar Scarabs normalmente siempre suelen tener muchas kills, tío. Normalmente, ¿eh? ¿Ojito solo el troll?
The dual lane of the Oni Warriors will slip away, but the Solar Scarabs take the
Hasta enero de 2022. Ah, vale, vale.
And all the momentum on their side. It's SOT going deep. Looks like a tier 2 siege here.
Will the Oni Warriors look to defend? Won't have anything to defend for the time being. Gold Fury's still a minute or two away from going down. That just felt
¿Cuál de todos los Mendys? El del City.
Didn't it, for the Oni Warriors? The Scarabs just group up, melt down the FG. SOT was being obnoxious.
Quillo, pero una pregunta en relación al caso del Mendy. O sea, ¿está en la cárcel porque es culpable? ¿O está en la cárcel? Y yo, ¿cárcel preventiva? No, no, hermano, mucho tiempo ya, ¿no? Es que no me he enterado. O lo dejan ahí para luego abrirle otra vez el caso. Es por culpable. Me estás diciendo que por asaltar menores y cargos de violación solo va a estar en la cárcel como mínimo hasta enero de 2022, es decir, 6 meses.
If not for SOT being an iron wall blocking them.
Yeah, my man was just hanging out around the backside of that fire giant fight. And so the
Se llama dinero. A ver, por muy poderoso que sea el caballero don dinero, es imposible que salga en 6 meses un pavo que tiene más de un cargo de asalto sexual y violación. O sea, es imposible.
But you gotta get there. We just haven't seen much from the Oni Warriors as far as pushback. Feels like the Solar Scarab since that
Yo creo que se le abrirá otro juicio extra. Es imposible.
Got some assists for the jungle, mid lane, Veronica.
Hermano, a ti te han baneado por muchísimo menos. ¿Me estás comparando ir a la cárcel con que me baneen de Smite?
Yeah, and specifically, it's been around the
Que
jungle.
los huevos,
We
tío.
saw The Circuit go towards the soul lane early on, doesn't hit pay with the gank, immediately rotates back over towards duo, is able to burn the beats from Stewart. Have we seen anything from Fred since then? I don't think so.
Estoy en la cárcel del Monopoly, hermano. Lo siento, manos arriba. Esto es un
Walked
atraco.
into the fog maybe one time and gotten poked out there as
cool,
well,
yeah.
but it's been a quiet performance from this Circuit.
El internacional galo hasta en 10 ocasiones tendrá que permanecer en la cárcel mínimo hasta el 24 de enero de 2022. Fecha en la que se celebrará el juicio, ¿ves? O sea, era imposible que ya lo hubiesen sentenciado y la sentencia fuesen 6 meses. Que voy a estar yo baneado de Smite más tiempo que él. Justo que no puedo, tío.
And now you've got a full team, all with FG, all with the ability to push.
Y yo no me convence el outfit del Mifflin, ¿lo habéis visto?
And we will see.
No me convence,
Now
¿eh?
the Solar Scarabs will utilize that Fire Giant buff.
¿Crees que te levanten el ban? No sé.
Couple towers already knocked down on this FG push. You got a minute and a half left on the buff.
Qué turbio, tío, qué turbio.
There wasn't immediate pushback. We wondered.
¿Qué crees que va a pasar con el Newcastle? ¿Crees que el próximo mercado...? No creo. Y yo, pero vosotros estáis fumando, en plan... Me refiero, vale, sí, cierto que la FIFA se ha pasado de listo con equipos tipo el PSG, el City y demás, que evidentemente han sacado pasta, sobre todo el PSG que ha sacado pasta del Alkelife y este, que le ha metido dinero, le ha inyectado dinero de su propia fortuna, ni de coña. El fair play financiero se lo han pasado por los huevos, pero que, y yo que se supone que los ingresos, o sea, el dinero para fichar y demás, el presupuesto tiene que venir del propio ingreso del club. No puede ser que un pavo venga multibillonario o yo que sé, y meta ahí, bueno, voy a meter aquí un par de billones. Y me compro a Haaland, Mbappé. Me voy a pillar también, vamos a pillarnos a Messi un par de añitos ya también. Vamos a fichar un poquito, mira, a Van Dijk, vamos a fichar... ¿Pero esto qué es? ¿Qué se va a comprar en la Premier League? Se compra la Premier League ya entera.
Because remember, the storyline around the Scarabs team all phase long has been they've only won a single set, but they've also gone to 3 games and narrowly lost a lot of 3-game sets. And you know that 1-6 win-loss record could have looked a lot different if game 3s, game 1s had gone the Scarabs' way. It's been such a sneaky team.
¿Cuánto tiempo era de la prediction? Minuto 33-30 creo, ¿no? Sí. ¿A dónde ha votado el Hendrix? ¿Dónde ha votado Hendrix? A ver, resumen. No hay GG antes del minuto 33. Y yo, vale, GG antes del 33, chavales. ¡Vamos, Scarabs! Ay, perdón. Mira cómo corre el Scream, hola, ¿qué lleva? Ey, yo, ¿habéis visto lo que corría el Scream? Ah, ¿le han podido echar un sprint quizás? Sí, ¿no? Yo, pero ¿habéis visto lo que corría? O sea, por un momento me ha parecido que el Windemon era del Scream, cabrón. Por cierto, el Hades ha hecho el Boombas, como hablamos antes. Una pregunta: en el caso del Newcastle, ¿cuánto dinero puede meter por temporada que caiga del fair play? En teoría no pueden meter dinero de los propietarios. No estoy seguro, la verdad. Vamos, 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 vamos.
And no push in. I mean, you're in a 4v5 deficit, but you don't give a real look to yourselves at an opportunity of stealing that away. This is great, clean play from the Solar Scarabs. With 4 kills on the board at 28 minutes.
Las cams no sé por qué las han quitado, la verdad.
because this Solar Scarabs team, at least in game 1, is looking dangerous.
Creo que las quitan,
we haven't
o sea,
seen
si
a
hay una
fight
repetición se
with
quitan, porque
five
si
from
no
the Solar
petan.
Scarabs. We have not seen Stewart legitimately try to hit an enemy just yet. I think there's been 2 Sanctified Fields all game, and they were both to secure the Fire Giant. The damage output of this Oleron, what is that, 1100? That's not a lot.
That is beefy.
And we are full build Oleron, by the way. So once he does decide to start hitting some targets, be it Nika, Cuba,
Pueden meter dinero usando sus mismas empresas para patrocinar el club de tal forma que hacen contratos sobre lo normal. Ya, pero ¿hasta qué punto eso está sostenido por el fair play? ¿Sabes? No sé yo,
And now the game simplifies in a siege scenario. How easy is it for the Solar Scarabs to create space around a Phoenix?
Está perdida. Yo creo que van a defender Hendrix.
There's no way the Warriors play in a
Si todos los jugadores estuvieran en USA, ¿crees que las posiciones de la SPL serían diferentes? No. Creo que los Kings quizás estarían un poquito por encima, porque os recuerdo que los Kings tienen al Big Man, que fue uno de los mejores medios en la primera y la segunda season, o sea, Split, perdón, y al Genetics. Los demás equipos, todos los tops están en Estados Unidos.
If Vote is able to hit that critical axe. Look, you got Transcendence, Brawlers, Jotuns, Heartseeker, Titansbane. This is a full build Uller. It's just got to hit that rotation. Hasn't happened yet this game. In goes Neoma, walks forward. Phoenix receiving a little bit of damage here on left as Neo.
Yo creo que la aguantan, Hendrix. Mira que quiero que pierda, pero yo creo que la aguantan.
It's just so high stakes what's happening on the left side of the map. If Vote lands an axe onto a hyper carry, they're dead. If Inbound lands a pull, that starts the fight off properly. These guys are trading haymakers on the Phoenix line.
Vote does have both of his actives, so does Dardez. So that pull from Inbound is out, or if the drop kick is out from Scream, Vote will walk on back from the winds of Shamash.
There's the pull!
Cubo Fred, massive 2-man knockup.
Dios, el Sol, todo le estaba pelando. Tremenda ulti de Boronic, la verdad. High Screen que se muere. Huge salto. Hendrix. Cuidado, Dos versus 4, Yo creo que lo defienden.
Should get those HP bars back in a fighting condition, but a couple of players on the Oni Warriors and 2 very important ones still alive. But SOT goes
bancarrota,
dropped low.
Bancarrota, Hendrix.
20 seconds, give or take, on the death timers from the Oni Warriors. Vote has got to go big, and Nika's got to take a lot of the damage himself. Walking into the Titan or the Solar Scarabs. That's a big ultimate from SOT. Goodbye, Vote. Goodbye.
¿Qué lo que es, Hendrix? ¿Qué lo que, brother? ¿Qué ha pasado, tío?
That is
so
impressive.
de nuevo que lo estoy grabando. La versión 2 del 24 horas. Mira, si me quitan el ban de Smite, capaz me lo pienso hasta hacer un 24 horas jugando en Smite. Solo porque me hayan quitado el ban. No, un subatón no pienso hacer. Un 24 horas quizá me lo pienso, si me hago también unos chupitos o lo que sea, más o menos al final, para aguantarlo. Pero si no, ni de coña.
I was going to say that if you're going to change something for the Warriors, how about you don't ban the best gods you can pick when you're first pick? Like, make them ban Geb from you. I just don't understand why they're banning Geb. It has to be that they don't think that
Y Yolarian, que el ban es perma, brother.
And I just don't understand how that's the case, because that god is
Ahí la cam, bro.
really good.
He's been very good. Cthulhu was another one that they had banned.
¿Cuándo vamos a ver películas en stream? Pero eso solo lo puede ver la peña como en el Amazon Prime, ¿no? No sé, la verdad. Nunca me ha llamado mucho la atención hacer eso.
Was banned out by the Scarabs. So maybe a little bit of work here for the Warriors in terms of draft order. But this is where things get a little more convoluted, right? Because you're looking at Sylvanas, you had mentioned not banning things that you're going to want to first pick. Terra, in my mind, goes on that list.
¿Algún consejo para un solo laner al que le ha dejado la piba? Mi felicidad ya está. Ya solo está en tus vídeos OG de Tiri Hércules. Hay que pasar página, brother. Es normal que al principio pues te moleste y te da ganas de llorar y demás. Pero ya encontrarás otra, hermano, mejor. Estate chillax. Resguárdate en Twitch o en mis vídeos, yo qué sé, tío. Haz lo que sea para mantener tu mente ocupada y ya está. No te rayes. Cocina con Julio. Sí, unos espaguetis con carne picada voy a cocinar. ¿Tienes tu cuenta de Epic? No estoy seguro, Miguel. Creo que sí, ¿no? ¿Por qué? Fóllate a otro y se te pasa. Bueno. Cuando veas al Warzone, pues jugaremos algunos días que no esté la SPL, supongo, para darte el código de un juego. Tú lo tienes, si no, cabrón, canjeátelo tú y me meto yo en tu cuenta. Yo es que no sé si tengo la mía, por cierto, y a ver una solicitud de un ban aquí traviesa.
Or Cthulhu, whatever vote wants. If a time, that's fine. I definitely do want to see Cthulhu here, though, for Nika.
We'll see if he locks it in.
Gol, dice Sanguche de Mila. Y lo baneo porque 24 del 10 es cuando estaba jugando el Madrid, ¿no? Solo grité un... O sea, Barcelona-Madrid. Solo grité un gol de mi equipo. ¿En serio me banean por eso? No es mi culpa que sea fan de un ex club y que no le puedan ni a un equipo de la Liga Mexicana B. Ojalá madurez y aguante el Real Madrid. Muchísimas gracias por tu aporte.
Because you're up against Guardians that can't possibly punish you. There are so few picks that actually punish Hades in lane, period. And none of them are named anything in the Guardian tab. So you just won't find it there. So it makes sense up in this lane matchup. Hades is pretty good against Umoja. You have a way to get out of the
10 años. Yo creo que 8, la verdad.
Really easily with that ultimate. Like I've been saying, 2-second fear on a regular ability can't be that bad.
Espérate, que tengo una solicitud de carta disponible.
And you know what? We got to see it a few times the last game. Wasn't that bad, as it turns out. It's
no.
Very solid. Plus,
Yo, ¿dónde está la mosquetera, cabrón?
I know the math behind it, how many procs you get in Pillar of Agony.
And then you add in Stone of Fall where you get 18% damage mitigation.
Yeah, you just don't
on top
die.
of that, you just don't die.
But if you have your ult, you shouldn't be worried about anything in the world.
Lo curioso que pide madurez. Es que la gente, tío, no le entra en la puta cabeza, hermano. Es que parecen subnormales. Yo creo que lo hacen a posta, pero es que luego te viene esa nota en plan... No sé. O sea, sabe que soy el Barcelona. En el puto título pone... Spoiler del clásico igual ban. El gilipollas pone gol. Le baneo. Y encima se queja y me pone esa solicitud de un ban. Quillo, pero ¿sois subnormales? O sea, es que hay gente que lo hace aposta, que eso es ya más retraso todavía. Pero, y la gente, tío, que lo hace en plan... Quillo, ¿no se te ha ocurrido pensar en leer el título, por ejemplo? O, por ejemplo, en decirme, Julio, ¿estás viendo el partido? ¿O vas a ver el partido? ¿Sabes cómo va el partido? En vez de decirme, Julio, ha metido el Barcelona. Julio ha metido el Madrid. No, es que encima me hace un spoiler cuando va perdiendo el Barcelona. Por lo menos, picha, si fuese ganando el Barcelona 5-0, bueno, menos mal, ¿sabes? Pero encima cuando va perdiendo el Madrid. Yo es que, mano, a esa gente, tío, me apetece robarle el teclado, tío. No es que no sepa leer, es que no saben pensar, tío. Yo creo que tiene un molino de viento ahí metido en el cerebro, loco. No sé, tío. No ha iniciado el partido, no, le quedan 5 minutos, sabía. Spoiler, baneo. Vamos a ver el primer gilipollas que hay en el chat. ¡Un croños! Ojo.
Look, we're used to it's a best of 5. We're used to things getting a little weird.
Not in game 2, Gore. It's game 2. We haven't even had a chance for stuff to get weird. They've top 3'd Hades.
Empezamos 0-1. Hermano, es que no quiero, tío, ni que la gente, o sea, ni que la gente me diga, mejor no lo veas. Mejor no lo veas. O sea, yo salí de aquí para ver el Barcelona, tío, sabiendo ya el resultado, gracias a vosotros. Y luego mi padre me dice, no lo veas. No lo veas porque te vas a enfadar. Y yo, ah, qué bien, genial. Hoy mete 3 el Kun, lo dudo. Bueno, a ver qué se cuece con este gameplay, chavales. Tenéis todavía una apuesta ahí activa, que no sé cuánto le quedará, 1 minuto o 2, algo así. Y ya está. Al final me quedo para el coaching. Hombre, depende, si te vas a ir con la rosa, vete si quieres con ella, no te calles, brother. No creo que sea un 3-0 de Solar Scarabs, la verdad. No sé a qué hora te tienes que ir.
I'm worried about the Scarabs being able to actually chew through the front line even with a Kali.
Well, things are getting wonky
¿No
here
de
in game
mañana?
2. Let's
¿Por qué
see
te
who
tienes que
comes
ir
out
por la
on top,
mañana?
right?
O sea, tienes que madrugar o
It's a
qué.
spooky season after all, Gormizer, and things are getting spooky in the battleground. Mid lane, Dardes on the Kronos, Baronic back on the Charybdis, Stewart on Izanami.
Los mejores anos de adapting en Smite según tu criterio, el 2 y el, o sea, la Season 2 y la Season 3.
Please.
PSG va primero, creo que ayer empató, ganó, gracias a Dios. Porque le metí una buena cantidad de dinero.
Dave, go ahead and take a lap.
Ahí
I'm
la
going to
cámara.
talk about a lot of picks here. I'm going to start off with just the pick order. Cannot believe the Oni Warriors took Yamoja over Terra. I think Terra is the highest value god in the game right now. Full stop. Earthen Fury is that strong in a team fight. But even beyond that, knowing, the Oni Warriors that is, knowing there's a Terra on the other side, they decide to put Cuvo Fred on Hun bots. And here's the thing about Hun bots.
Please tell me.
He's terrible into Terra because Fear No Evil is going to proc the heal of Earthen Fury every single time. There's no way for you to use that ultimate and not have it heal the enemy team. It's not offsetting the damage output. Am I getting heated?
Yeah,
Getting a little angry. And you know, I'm going to keep going. Kali dominates Cthulhu.
Que yo, ¿alguien le puede decir al puto Mifflin que se baje el volumen del puto micro, por favor, tío? Es que cuando se pone a gritar, tío, es mortal. O sea, que le haga yo mi streaming, vale, picha, pero que le haga un tío que está especteando profesionalmente. A la gente le va a reventar los hoyos de repente, tío.
I think that this game is
no se escucha el juego si se juega, ¿no? O sea, si se escucha,
so
¿no?
if the Oni Warriors win this game, I am going to change my life from here on. I'm going to be an F7 warrior. Every game is winnable, and that's just the truth of it.
All right.
Eso vi el otro día, sí.
You got a life swap for Mifflin riding on game number 2 here, Warriors. So let's see what you can
I'll
get
never
done.
F6 again. Put it on record. If the Oni Warriors win this game, I will never F6 again in my life.
How do you think that's a similar impact to you betting like 50 grand on a game of Smite?
I would say that 50 grand means less to me because I value my time so highly.
All right, you heard it here first, Miff, never again.
Que sepas que me alegras el día y tú a mí también cuando te duchas. Oye, pues los Oni Warriors, la verdad que en la partida anterior no la he visto así, o sea, la he visto así muy por encima porque estamos hablando y tal. Pero me están sorprendiendo porque están jugando medio mal, ¿no? Porque esa meta no está en meta, simplemente lo he sacado solo el troll. ¿Cuántos partidos quedan? Mínimo 2 más, o sea, este y otro más, como mínimo. Y como máximo 4.
Game 1 was anything but. Game 2, they're on the right foot.
Do you think it's a similar
El equipo del PSG del medio campo para atrás da pena. ¿Tú crees, tío?
You mentioned big facilitation by the end of the game. Vote, my goodness. Not allowed to play. Is it going to happen to the Hunter this time? No. Bifrost and Shell there. Action in the mid lane as Darda is taken low. Baronic not level 5 just yet. Cubo Fred, same for him. Baronic
no.
damage. And he will survive on the left of the fight. He goes back in. Dardes back in base had his
Ramos sigue lesionado.
bring him back to
Sí,
lane.
tío.
So Baronic
¿Quién lo diría,
balancing
Luis
out a tightrope
Enrique
there,
no...
mistake.
no...
He is. Baronic actually behind a little bit of experience at this point. As
Luis
Scream
Enrique que
keeps
no
on the
lo
wall,
convoca
trying
para la
to get a little
selección
bit of attention
española,
on
tío.
his
Todo el mundo
right side
echándosele
of the
encima.
dance. Baronic,
Pero ahí
having
está.
not sold out his
Lesionado
red
desde
buff,
verano.
not even done his
Estamos
red
a
buff,
noviembre, por
sitting
cierto,
level 4. I think if he takes
2
over to
días para
5,
noviembre quedan.
very well could have been a kill on a Dardes there, but delays his own red. So the Solar Scarabs slightly behind on their own farm, their farm rotation that is. But
Yeah, not in
actual
gold, though.
farm, actual experience, Solar Scarabs got that in spades. 1,500 gold, 4 minutes in.
Yeah, that's big for this point in the game. I want to get back to it though. Just prior to that fight in the mid lane, game 1, different look for Scream. Couple of assists early in the game, and then we kind of just rode that high all through to the end for the Solar Scarabs. Kali, late game, maybe a different look. Hyper carry in the sense that, in the same vein of the hyper carry style that Scream likes to play, but takes a little bit of time to get there. So maybe we're going to see a similar pacing for Scream this game, but a different look at the late game.
We haven't had many looks at Kali's throughout the entirety of the year as Baronic moves up aggressive because he's got
Whoa.
backup.
He does have backup, and it's an inch around the backside. Inch perfect on the ultimate from Dardes. Double stun there. Countered out by the Earthen Fury. And Dardes plays that as close
Ojalá volver a
as he
Luis
can.
Enrique al Barça, la verdad que
Close
sí.
as enough in
Hombre,
this
prefiero a,
case.
o sea,
Will stay alive.
prefiero a Luis Enrique antes que a Xavi porque Luis Enrique ya sé lo que es capaz de hacer. Capaz el Xavi se marca una mierda, que espero que no, y no tiene pinta, la verdad.
Already used the ultimate
Pero
earlier on, so Stewart not able to continue
si me dan a
chasing this
elegir,
one out. But maybe you chase out this red buff. Cubo Fred forced to
que
make
no
the
tan
rotation.
vacío.
Neoma hovering nearby at 50%,
No
still
sé,
level 4.
ya
no
puede
ult
entrar
available.
toda la peña en el
Well,
Camp Nou.
Fred will have to watch as the red buff goes down. So now it's been what? Back-to-back purple buffs
A Xavi, yo
and
no.
a red buff going to the Solar Scarabs. This is
And a Scorp,
and a Squirp
and Oracles.
and Oracles.
Also First Blood earlier.
Also first blood, that counts. So this is a more, actually I don't even know if it's more. I mean, it's a similar level of active as we saw in game number 1.
Sí, a ver, Jonah.
Bringing the action to the Scarabs doorstep and the Scarabs just answering. This is more
Eh,
active, but more in farm
la,
doing, less in killing.
la exigencia que hay en Europa y en el Barcelona es la misma que la que tendrá en el Al-Assad, ¿sabes?
I was going to make a point about how
Pero
Scream on this Kali
yo he
is a
visto
late
cómo
game
juega
hyper
ese
carry.
equipo a
I'm not gonna mince
veces en
words about
partidos
that,
que
but
estaban
in a
en
no
el
roots
YouTube y
world,
demás.
I think Kali comes
Y
online
la verdad es que,
much,
cuidado,
much faster. I'm thinking like level 12, level 13.
Luis Enrique tiene
You're already hitting
tenía
a
mejor
point where
plantilla que la del
Kali can start
Barça.
to get involved on the map,
Ahora,
whereas beforehand
cabrón,
it
pero
was
¿te has visto cómo
level
juega España?
16 to 18 that you were forced to wait for because you
O me está diciendo que Oyarzabal es mejor que Depay.
with Crusher in the
Pero
main
¿esto qué mierda
space,
es, tío?
strong it is, we could see Kali
O Morata.
go directly into a kin size in this next slot. Serrated Edge, another great option for this god. Scream, he doesn't have too much of a game ahead of him that he has to wait through, I should say.
¿Te
He's got
gusta
plenty of
Pirlo?
game to play, though.
Hombre, no vi mucho cómo jugó la Juventus, solo sé que lo echaron rápido, que no es bueno.
What?
Goodbye, Kubo Fred. See you later. In 15 seconds, you're allowed to play again, but Scream will shut him down with the help of Inbound. He is evaporated from the map. 6.5 minutes into this game, you thought you were getting a speed buff. It wasn't even up. And lucky for Kubo Fred.
Oyarzabal es mejor. Y yo, Hendrix, que no pasa nada, tío, que sabemos que eres de la Real
Where were
Sociedad,
these
no te preocupes,
Scarabs
tío.
all year? The concentrated effort, the call, Scream sits there
¿Cómo
for
que
so
dónde
long
están
and
los
says,
Scarabs
"Hey,
all year? Pero si
anybody
llevan
need
jugando
me?
bien
I'm
todo el año,
Stan
cabrón.
Burnley, and we're gonna put
Sobre
Kubo
todo el
Fred in the
Scream.
coffin." And it
Y
just
sorprendentemente
works.
el
Great
Inbound.
rotation inbound
Lo que
to
pasa
make
es que
sure
no le
that
ganaban a nadie.
dedication of the Earthen Fury
En los
on the
sets,
dot
pero los
damage
games, sí.
from the lash out from Scream, it's just clean.
Yeah, Inbound.
See ya.
Inbound
Qué
plays
buena
an
ulti para
absolute
combinarla con los
obviously
tics del 2,
Scream is
hermano.
the highlight, he's there, but it's that
Yo,
chance that you're
Fat
highlighting
Hans.
this. I mean, that is an execution
Muchísimas gracias, hermano, por esos 10
members of
meses.
Silver Scarabs, and both of them deserve their love.
Yo, pero vosotros, hermano, lo del Vinicius Balón de Oro o Benzema Balón de Oro, ¿lo estáis diciendo los que sois del Madrid? ¿Lo estáis diciendo por el meme o lo estáis diciendo en serio? Pregunto,
Something extra there because the Solar Scarabs have added one singular kill, and they've added 2,500 gold otherwise. And the Oni Warriors have just not had an answer. The Oni Warriors,
O sea, en serio, loco.
after the first kill in game 1 to this point, 8 minutes into game 2, have been
Yo por el meme,
experienced
Smite.
vale. And that's it. The Solar Scarabs have been driving the bus.
Stewart leaps forward, forces a defensive ultimate out from Vote, and rightfully so as Scream and Inbound were hovering in the jungle. I think the gold are currently sitting at 4,000.
Sí, yo creo que estará entre Messi, Lewandowski, Salah quizás, no creo, pero siempre está la posibilidad.
And it might just get worse.
They're gonna do it again. Stun from Baronic not there. Waiting in the mist was Cubo.
Good ults.
Fear no Evil down. Fear's out too. Look at the re-engage.
Y yo una cosa, ¿habéis visto lo que mete la puta Cali, tío?
Back from base, walking towards Scream here, who still has the ultimate destruction thrown down, but it'll secure his escape this time. Nika from range.
Good
nice
blink.
Grab a kill, but the blink gets used, and that'll keep Scream on the map. And that is a good answer from the Oni Warriors. You don't get a kill, but you don't lose anyone. And so some signs of life from the Order team.
But the Warriors
dijo que se
dedicate a
cansó que Messi gane el
rotation
Balón de
from their
Oro.
soul laner. They
A Messi
needed
le han
a
robado
kill
muchos
there.
balones de
Nika
oro.
has
Siento
to get
deciros
something,
eso.
because
Y
what's
no lo digo porque
SOT
sea del
on the other
Barcelona,
side? Clearing waves,
ni fan de
stealing
Messi,
farm,
lo
pulling
digo
himself
por
even further
objetividad.
ahead. Nika
no
was
por
dead
más.
even before that.
Yep.
Now he's 2 levels down.
2 levels down, so blue buff plus Harpies.
No, don't do it again. Surely not.
There's no way.
El Scream anda metiendo carritos, Julio, recién vine almorzando y no vi la pasada. Scream jugó muy bien con el Giga la partida anterior, pero creo que fue mejor overall de Scarabs. Fue una partida medio lentilla. Si le dieran todos pensarían que es tongo. Pero ¿y qué? En plan, ¿ha sido el mejor? Sí o no. Sí. Da mi Balón de Oro. Iniesta, Xavi cuando ganaron el Mundial tenían que haber ganado el Balón de Oro. Te discuto el de Iniesta, pero... ganó la Champions el Barcelona, ¿no? En 2000... Ah, no, fue en 2009.
Dave, you said something in the post game after game 1 to me. And it was
Igual te lo discuto un poco.
No, it was good.
Lo
You
de
said that
Modric,
Solar Scarabs
ya me dirás tú
have
por
been
qué.
hiding this strategy. They've been hiding this version of themselves, and I thought that you were an idiot, man. I was thinking to myself, no way they'd be waiting this long.
That's the first time you've ever thought that.
And it is the first time I've ever thought that. You're generally an intelligent guy. But the calculated level of play that we've
El de
seen
Iniesta
from
no era
the
más de
Solar
Xavi.
Scarabs this set
Sí,
already
o sea, fueron los tres,
might
¿no?
lend some
Además, yo
credence
le
to
daría
your
todo a
words,
Messi,
as
que
well
te
as the
diga.
fact that the Solar Scarabs, in every single interview, in every one of their social medias, every way they could speak to the public, they have said, we are a contender for Worlds.
Robó
If
la
this is the
Champions en
version they're
2009.
bringing
Sí, la verdad es
into this phase of the
que
year,
contra el
for the
Chelsea
first time this year,
hubo cosas
I
raras.
think I might believe them.
You're right.
Pero bueno, si lo dices porque del Madrid, permíteme que me ría, ¿vale?
That's a good data point, but it does not establish a trend. We are giving the Scarabs their due credit because they have shown up big in game 1 and fantastic in game 2. If you close this set out in 3 games and you look the same all 3, then we're having some serious conversations about the top half of this group and how it ends up looking.
¿Qué coño? ¿Por qué el Scream se ha dejado el Licheival al 2? Bueno, el Odysseus. ¿Es worth? ¿No es worth pillarte ya del tirón el Odysseus a full? Y yo, eso da mucho ataque speed, ¿no?
Close out sets in the past. That's the next hill this team has got to get over. So, thrilled with the way they've looked so far.
Mejor arquero de esta temporada. No sé, la verdad.
5,000 gold now to the Chaos team over their
No sé.
opposition, and the Solar Scarabs in sets of past and in months of past, when they weren't able to
30%.
find those, they weren't able to leverage their lead for actually taking out enemies, they would stagnate. It would be slow down. It would extend the match a good bit.
El
But here, the
Dibu.
Solar Scarabs have been sitting at 2 kills for
Ese pavo
6
jugó súper bien en la Copa
but
América,
they're
¿eh?
continually growing that lead. It's the threat of, hey, we might be able to just dive into your
Scream
back
con
line.
qué
Oh,
equipo fue
we might
campeón.
just be hiding at your
Y
back line,
United,
Steve-O,
si no me
and
quiero tirar
you
un
can't
triple.
come here or you'll die.
¿O no?
That threat has forced the Oni Warriors
Splice,
to positions where they are
quizás.
splitting farm inefficiently. There's 2
No,
retreats,
Splice
but
fue Cino.
almost always in mid.
¿Y Unite?
They're missing out on their own camps because they're scared to walk towards them. The Solar Scarabs,
Sí,
they're
¿no?
winning
Vale.
out in macro play, and this legitimately might be the first time I've got the opportunity to say that this year. These guys are impressing mightily.
They are. And the Oni Warriors have just, I don't know, they've paled away. They have faded out, at least in game 1. We could easily be putting the cart before the horse here. There's a lot of game 2 left to be
Cuando
played.
falló el crack en Wolfie.
And still a
Cierto
full
es.
game 3 at least if this one continues in this direction. And so it's
Ahí hay unos flashbacks de Vietnam, cabrón, con los Krakens. El Wolfie. El Hurry, el Kata in Twig. Quiero pensar que este año va a haber un Poseidón que falle Krakens.
lead for Stewart. He's got fully stacked Devour's Gauntlet, and I think worth a conversation around that. That's something we saw.
Nika por debajo, Fred por debajo, esto no pinta bien. Igualmente Nika es un Cthulhu. El problema es que Scream está muy gordito, la verdad. ¿Cómo quedaremos en el derby mañana? Voy a apostar a que ganáis. Volveremos a ver una rivalidad tan padrota como la de Cristiano y me sirve. A mí es que, o sea, me parece, sí, vale, punto positivo, pero es que... ¿Por qué...? Porque... Vale, o sea, rivalidad, vale. Pero... Que me digan que Cristiano era mejor que Messi. Yo supongo que la de la siguiente década será Mbappé Haaland. Supongo. Lo vas a agafar, cabrón, que no. El saltito bug, eso es del espectáculo. Que se queda como en el aire, ¿no? Sobre todo repetir a Will, supongo que sí, ¿no? A mí me gusta más Haaland que Mbappé, sí. Vinicius Fati, la versión española. Hombre, yo creo que... Si Mbappé va al Madrid y el Barcelona no ficha al Haaland, va a haber dudas. Cristiano es la imagen del trabajo y el esfuerzo y Messi talento, en mi opinión. La gente que dice eso piensa que Messi no trabaja o que Cristiano no tiene talento. Vale, sí, el Cristiano Ronaldo tiene mejor físico y más disciplina que Messi. Bueno, disciplina tampoco. Es que no sé cómo decirlo, hermano. Como más espíritu de capitán, supongo, algo así. No sé, en plan... Es que no sé, tío. Y os iba a decir eso, que yo el Vinicius os lo he dicho, tío. O sea, es full meme, mucho, muy full meme. Pero yo lo vi, tío, cuando jugaba con Solari. Y a mí me daba miedo Vinicius, tío. Os lo juro, Os lo juro que me daba un montón de miedo, tío. Lo que pasa es que era como Dembélé 2.0. Igualmente Dembélé me parece mejor que Vinicius cuando no está lesionado. Pero es que o sea, el Dembélé también es fundamental. Ay, qué hostia le daba esto, bro.
Take a significant hit in their effectiveness. Wow, what did I say? Effectiveness?
Effectiveness.
Oh, nice.
You
Efficacy, right?
Efficacy?
I think that's it.
Yes, correct. Yes, you're asking me if...
No es una temporada se quedaba a cero que andaba vomitando en pleno partido. Que yo, pero eso fue que estaba malo, ¿no, cabrón? Que yo qué sé, tío, si hay una gastroenteritis, ¿qué va a hacer, sabes? Otra cosa. Y yo, ¿a alguien le recuerda alguna lesión al Cristiano Ronaldo? Aparte de la del verano cuando ganó la Eurocopa. A mí no me suena ninguna, tío. Yo sé que el Messi al principio se lesionaba un montón. Pero al Ronaldo no le recuerdo ninguna cuando estuvo en el Madrid así medio gorda, ¿sabes? Pero me acuerdo que Messi se perdió un clásico. Cuando estaba Luis Enrique, creo. O Valverde, no me acuerdo cuál era. No sé, ya no me acuerdo. Pero al Ronaldo...
But you're not rolling the dice time in and time out.
Agreed.
You're building up that small lead, and then you're transforming.
A Messi le pegan más patadas, sí, eso tiene razón. A Messi, tío, yo no sé cómo no lo han desgraciado, A Messi le han pegado que tío, entre el Ramos, el Pepe de mierda. Ahí en las Copas Américas esas de mierda también, casi me lo desgracian, tío. Yo me quedé calvo, tío. ¿Qué pasa, Damián? Una lesión a Hazard. Tío, lo de Hazard fue un cachondeo cuando el Madrid perdió contra el Chelsea y se estaba descojonando ahí. Dios, tío. Es verdad, tío, a Maradona también. Y ¿cómo ha cambiado el fútbol? Yo vi, o sea, bueno, vi, porque me lo dijo mi padre, que lo viese, la final de la, no sé si era de la Copa del Rey, creo que sí, contra el Atleti. El final, bueno, no sé si, era la final, creo que sí, ¿no? Y o la que se liaron a
Yeah, every
hostias.
FPL game I ever played.
Madre mía, hermano. ¿Os imagináis que eso pasa ahora? ¿Os imagináis, tío, que eso pasa ahora, loco? El Maradona dándole rodillazos a un tío ahí tirado en el suelo, patadas voladoras. Y yo, pero qué fumada fue esa, tío, no lo entiendo. ¿Cómo va? Son partidas lentillas, pero los Scarabs parece que van a ganar esta partida también. Y no sé si la tercera quizás si se desarrolla igual. Y los Warriors no toman medidas,
I'm not gonna give them
pues...
an inch. They decided
Otro
in the early game,
tercero.
oh, we lost the early, so we can't play anymore. I saw the active decision making of, all right, well, I guess we're not going to try and gank this lane anymore. Well, SOT's got a lead, I guess, so leave him alone.
Why do
well,
they sound
well, Stewart's been dominant because they're getting stomped out by the Solar Scarabs right now. And legitimately, they've taken the path of least resistance every time. Have we seen the Oni Warriors show up to a neutral objective?
No.
No. Have we seen them try and put up a defense on one of these towers?
¿Cuál es la predicción? Has apostado y no te sabes ni la predicción. Creo que era en el minuto 32 o algo así, ¿no?
God, that's the mind killer.
GG antes del minuto 32-30.
And that's what I'm talking about. Sure, the Solar Scarabs are now
CR7 hace poco dio una patada.
gold in the lead, but that's because the Oni Warriors
Sí,
didn't
a
try
un
and
tío
stem the
a un
bleeding
tío en
anywhere
el
on the map.
suelo.
Every
Yo no
single mid
sé
camp that the Solar Scarabs
cómo
showed
cojones
up
no le
to,
pulsaron.
they took with nobody there to fight them back. Sure, you could say, that's because we've got a Chronos mid, we can't fight in the early. Who made that decision? It was the Oni Warriors. I'm not going to give them an inch. I'll give them every bit of credit when
Ojo al
they
Free
do well.
Fire.
But when they do poorly, you got to say that as well.
All right, so here's the neutral objective.
You have to show up.
Full caps, you gotta show up to this. Nika's alone. It's a party of one.
Le puede salir buen game esto, Stuart, ¿por qué no le das a las putas beats, loco?
There it is.
Ojo, King con el Windemon. Nah, esto huele a GG, ¿no?
And the Solar Scarab should get that as well.
So where's Vote? He's in the left side of the map. Going to take out a tier 2 tower. Gotta hope that he gets a Phoenix to match the pressure that the Solar Scarabs are going to get from this Fire Giant. And what's happening to Dardes? Also going for a split push. But now he's lined up against SOT with a 2-level lead.
En Sudamérica se puede matar en un partido y la gente está así de güey, eso sí es pasión. Ya, no sé. A mí, yo ya lo he dicho, el fútbol allí, tío, en Latinoamérica me parece demasiado bruto, tío. Eso no es fútbol, hermano. Y no, o sea, a ver, no discuto que tengan pasión, pero es que hay muchos que deberían estar en la cárcel con las entradas que hacen, hermano. Yo no sé cómo no se desgracia más gente ahí, hermano. Rodillas rotas o una tibia rota o algo así, ¿sabes? Pero ¿qué dices? A ver qué me dice Zomboy XD. A ver Zomboy XD. ¿Cómo me discute? Mi opinión. A ver.
But where do you draw the line? If you're saying, okay, well, we got to draw the line at the Phoenix. We don't want to have our base exposed. What are you losing in the process? Fire Giant, Pyromancer, Gold Fury, and 5 towers.
Eso es fútbol, bro. Ja, 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 ja. Así se juega. Vale. No sabía que el fútbol era una combinación de MMA y darle pataditas a un balón, la verdad. Supongo que eso es fútbol, bro. No sé, creo que Conor McGregor estaría orgulloso de la zurdita de Ramírez. Es que así se juega, hermano. Es que no me sé las reglas del juego, ¿sabes? Es que no me las sé. Mientras no sea falta. Ya. Fútbol inglés es el mejor y entran muy duro también. Vale.
He's got 4K in hands.
It'll really highlight, 4,000 gold for SOT. It really highlights all of our points here so far about
Deporte de contacto, pónganse la falda y a llegar a la iglesia.
it's one continuous slow burn downward and then the FP takedown.
Hombre, supongo que algunos lo estáis ya full meme, pero de verdad me preocupa que muchas personas, tío, no vean la realidad, hermano. Me sorprende, tío. Me sorprende,
Two kills pre-10 minutes has almost never won a game before just now. That's the extent of what I can say.
Si la lesión dura menos de 6 meses no es falta. Y yo, si no hay hueso roto en la radiografía, no es falta, loco. Y para expulsar a alguien te tienen que meter un navajazo. Eso es así.
Stun does not connect. Riptide does, but Hades is vibing at above 50% HP despite all that connecting onto him. So Bumba's Hammer ends up being the pickup followed by a mask for Sot. And at 101, this Hades has participated in 50% of the kills.
Sienten que está ofendiendo a sus ídolos cuando no está criticando a que jueguen bien o mal, solo a que juegan como brutos.
We haven't drawn it just yet. But luckily for the Oni Warriors, they've run out of places to draw it. There's only 4 left. The 3
no sé, tío.
And this Titan. They gotta draw a line somewhere to put up their defense.
¿Os imagináis a Sergio Ramos jugando en Sudamérica? Creo que lo expulsarían un total de 2 veces. ¿Cuántas tarjetas rojas ha tenido Ramos? ¿30? Creo que allí lo habrán expulsado, lo expulsarían una y poco. Una y casi 2. O sea, si Sergio Ramos no hubiese sido del Madrid, madre mía, cabrón. Imaginaos a Sergio Ramos jugando en el Sevilla. Yo creo que mínimo unas 50 veces cae. Y partido de sanción. Más de uno.
To capitalize on it. They are 14,000 gold down, 24 minutes in.
Yeah, look. We like to keep intrigue going. If the Solar Scarabs don't win game 2, that's disastrous.
I also am not allowed to
se pierde la mitad de la temporada, la mitad solo.
Right, myth life implications on the line. But to really set the stage, this game should be over after one more fight.
Casemiro en Brasil, no sé cómo le iría. No sé, a veces... ¡Uy!
Should make quick work of Nika. It's a set into madness. It's fear no evil. It's nothing from the Oni Warriors. It's everything from the Solar Scarabs.
Es que están jugando como muy medio malardo, ¿no? Los Oni Warriors. Hermano, pues van a finishar antes del minuto 26,
Dardes does get the rewind off, so maybe finds 1 kill. Who am I kidding? That won't go his way. Double for SOT. And the Solar Scarabs blank them in 2.
Hey, yo, Sanz, muchísimas gracias por esos 16. Muchas gracias, hermano. Ya lo sé, Hendrix, tío. Enhorabuena. No olvidar cuando en la final de la Libertadores se tuvo que jugar en España porque si se jugaba en Sudamérica habría una masacre. Opino lo mismo. O sea, y yo, eso no es pasión, tío. Yo no entiendo, tío. Esos comportamientos en Inglaterra, igual, y yo. Hubo... creo que en la final de la Eurocopa también, ¿no? Muchos ingleses que salían a dar palizas y no sé qué. Pero ¿qué cojones estáis haciendo, tío? ¿Sois subnormales? ¿Os vais a resguardar siempre en el argumento de en la pasión del fútbol, tío? Pero sois retraídos, tío. No entiendo nada, tío. No entiendo nada. Yo creo que la final, o sea, yo creo que sí, tío. Yo creo que se celebrará en España porque si no iba a haber más de un muerto seguro, vamos. 100%, pero 100%, ¿eh? 100%. Vale, la cam.
The Scarabs could potentially take it all, and I'll give them credit maybe a lot faster than I anticipated on this day.
Una pregunta, ¿las sillas gamer de Smite las compras o te las da hi-rez? Creo que la de los jugadores te la dan ellos. No estoy seguro. Capaz no, te recuerdo que la sudadera y demás se la tenían que dar, o sea, se la tenían que comprar los jugadores.
let's take it out. And the Warriors, you know what? When you're down 0-2 and nothing has worked, you've got to change something. And so, and if it's changing the Hades out, I'm fine with that. That does not offend me. They don't ban Geb this game. And now the Scarabs go, oh yeah, do we want to give up Geb? You can trade Geb for Umoja. That's not the end of the world, but I feel like Geb is significantly stronger than every other Guardian in the game, personally.
Geb, Umoja, Artio was someone that was in that conversation. I actually really like this. You get to see the Warriors adapting as time goes on, right? The Sylvanas Oleron, very strong in game 1, ends up coming through and getting banned in game 2. Tack on the Hades from games 1 and
Tío, ya ves. O sea, están tan mal mentalmente que han baneado un puto Hades, tío. Es como si me baneo una Puch porque estoy jugando contra Warchi con a Puch solo, tío. ¿Esto qué mierda es, loco?
Two different Guardians for this third one, and I think you're on the money. It's whether or not they want to deal with Geb or not. They go for Camazotz.
Wow.
And I want to ask you, with Geb available, Artio available, Umoja available, Cthulhu available, there's a lot of options for both solo and your support.
Yeah, I pick Geb. Yeah, I pick Geb. I pick Geb. That's wild. That's wild.
You're in a different world than the Warriors, apparently.
You know, I come off the last set,
you're the Scarabs,
you know, I come off the last set. Here's what happens, okay? I come off the last set, I think, I was a little harsh on the Warriors, I think, during that draft. And then Mifflin buries them during the cast, inappropriately so.
I think the Scarabs did a lot of the burying, too.
Well, yeah.
Well, they dug the grave.
Right.
Mifflin put the dirt back.
I come into this desk thinking, I need to, be a little bit more kind to the Warriors.
Yeah.
I need to give and give a little bit more credit to the Scarabs, which they absolutely deserve, and I don't want anyone to think otherwise. But they aren't going to pick Geb either, which is... My mind is melting out of my ears. It's a Halloween massacre scene on the desk from my brain leaving my body.
And you want to talk about other first picks that we've seen over both Umoja, Geb, not necessarily over Geb, but...
They can still get it here, by the way.
Juega Puch en la SPL, no.
Picked up either, so Geb...
¿Algún partido más hoy? No.
For the front line, we'll see what Neilma wants. Charybdis and Umoja. And I shouldn't have to bring this up because as of late,
No sé por qué cojones ahora de repente la Charybdis es super top. Es verdad, porque ahí pone aquí Best of 3. Y yo, hi-rez, tío. Es que es deprimente, hermano. Cada vez tienen algún error. O sea, en cada deciming tienen un error, tío. Es deplorable, tío. Es deplorable,
They prioritize the Terra over the Geb. Yo, if I'm the rest of this group, if I'm the rest of Group B and I'm watching these picks and bans and I'm seeing Geb not touched in the first 3 picks or the first 3 bans, I'm like, oh sweet, so we get to pick that. Like, we get to just make teams ban that. We can make both these teams ban it against us because they just don't prioritize it as heavily as every other team seems to be. But I gotta move on eventually from it. Umoja, Charybdis, Tsukiyomi is a really strong top 3 here for the Scarabs. And in having this Charybdis still bring that flex pick potential. If I'm the Warriors, I'm banning Magical Guardian, your Magical Soul Laners. I'm banning Cthulhu first and foremost. And then I'm banning Cerberus, probably. Those would be my 2 bans, just to keep... If the Scarabs want to go all in on physical, they can. I can't ban Hunters away from them to not let them go double Hunter. But I can at least make their composition more unbalanced. And I'm surprised at the Warriors. I mean, I know that Stewart has a really good Heimdall. Like you said, he plays it more than any other Hunter. But I really feel like the difference between Cthulhu and Cerberus and then the rest of the Guardians that you could play in solo is so vast that you're giving the Scarabs a really balanced draft.
Capaz han ganado ya, ¿sabes? 3-0. Y ahí pone 0-2. Yo que sé, tío, esta peña...
But even without Heimdall and Hachime, like, there's still plenty of Hunters that are available that admittedly maybe aren't at the top of the list, but we saw a lot of ROM highlights that were very interesting and still capable.
Yeah,
Uller is still
ROM,
available and
Chernabog, Uller, all those
Soul.
are options. Soul, good option. I mean, you can go with anything like that. I do think the difference between Soul and Heimdall and Hachi for Stewart in particular, Stewart's pretty unproven on this Soul if that's where it's going.
No sé, tío.
This could be a switch.
Me parece una falta de profesionalidad tremenda, tío. Que si no se ha podido recuperar las pausas, o sea, la partida después de las pausas, que si bugs con las cams, que si tenemos que quitar las cams en mitad de la partida. Que si best of 3, que si no ponen el nombre del coach. Aquí a veces aparece 0-3. O sea, un 3 aquí o un 1 cuando no debería ser así. No sé, tío. Los picks cambiados también. Es que... Yo no sé, tío. Me ponen aquí a Hurriwin con un hacha. Y yo no sé, tío, no sé.
Now they get the Erlong Shin alongside this Discordia that's locked in. Both of these feel very Warriors-esque for them. Cuvo's going to be a huge portion of this. We've seen what Scream can do on Tsukiyomi. We've seen what he's doing this set. I feel like this Erlong has to go big.
I think so too. Fred has got to step up in the way that he's playing. He has got to make a bigger difference for sure. This .G pick.
That's a Tsukiyomi solo, baby.
That's a Tsukiyomi solo. And they snapped the ankles of the Oni Warriors with this juke, and they did it to me too. That broke my brain for a second. Dude, this
a esta altura creo que no les importa. Me cuesta mucho creer que son tan inoperantes como para cometer tantos errores. Hombre, una cosa es que sean inoperantes y otra cosa es que no les importe.
Artio, Izanami, Terra, Erlong Shen, no CC immunity. Daji obliterates this draft.
No sé, tío. Hablando de detalles, porque hay una Yemoja Open. A ver, la Yemoja de Invulner es bastante malarda. O por lo menos tenía unas muy malas estadísticas. ¿Le ganará a un Erlang? Ahora lo veremos.
That does not mean, you know, we don't draft and then go, all right, congratulations, Solar Scarabs, you've won. You've got to go out there and execute. You've got to do it. But they have set themselves up for as easy as of a game 3 as you can have. You know, if they play like game 2, they have won the draft phase.
Me ha mandado una solicitud de un ban.
We'll see what happens, but I think that overall the Scarabs have done such a good job in this place. The one thing that is different for this draft is the Tsukiyomi versus the Hades. Those are two very different styles. You do not have as good of a front line. If things deteriorate,
Miguel,
because that Tsukiyomi isn't bringing that
te ha tocado, pichita.
It's going to be one that's going to be fun to watch. We've seen what Solar Troll can do with the Tsukiyomi. We're going to have to wait just a little bit.
Deseame suerte, me faltan 500 de MMR para el Master. Y yo, tú sabes que 500 de MMR son mínimo... Ah, para el GM. Bueno, sigo diciendo que son mínimo 30 partidas, ¿no? Quillo, esta peña no tiene vergüenza, tío. ¿Por qué tienen que hacer un...? Ah, coño, es verdad que están los Oni Warriors. Vale, me callo. Vale, pues... No sé si echarme un clash, la verdad. Nada, voy a echarme un Tetris. Porque no necesito cofre. Y por cierto, os recuerdo que luego voy a crear el clan secundario, ¿vale? Para los que queráis entrar y no podéis entrar en el primario. En el principal. Pues podéis entrar ahí, ¿vale? Os voy a decir que no hay evidentemente requisitos como tal, pero... O sea, sí va a haber requisitos, pero no como en el primero, ¿sabes? Tipo, evidentemente queremos ganar la guerra y demás. Todo el mundo tiene que participar y eso. Pero... que no es nada de copas ni nada. O sea, eso me da bastante igual, la verdad. O sea, si veo que hay muchísima demanda, capaz sí que pongo un límite de copas. Pero lo que más me importa es lo del clan. O sea, la guerra del clan, la verdad. Que ahí te dan súper buena mierda, te dan un montón de oro, etcétera, etcétera. Que bien me lo estoy pasando. Gracias. Qué clean, qué clean. Quita la cámara de ahí. ¡Hostia! No sabía que estaba ahí puesta, tío. Me he empanado. Perdón, chavales. Fallo táctico. My bad. ¿Qué es lo que no se veía exactamente? Uf, bastante, ¿no? ¿Qué opinas del nuevo sistema de baneo del futuro del parche? Es bastante inteligente, la verdad. Evidentemente no es de hi-rez, porque bueno, esas dos palabras no van muy a menudo en la misma frase. Pero no quita que sea bastante inteligente copiárselo al LoL, la verdad. Estaban tardando bastante en hacerlo porque era muy pesado el sistema de ranked el sistema de baneo de rankeds. ¿Qué haces, tío? Teniendo en cuenta que, sobre todo, a mí no me pasaba mucho, pero yo veía que muchísimas veces, tío, a ciertos streamers, no digo nombres porque no me sé los nombres, simplemente pues veía los streaming o lo que sea. O sea, tipo los jugadores de los pro player y demás. Y les cogían, tío, y les snipeaban o lo que sea, y se iban cuando en el último. A Warchi también se lo hacían muchas veces. Porque, no sé por qué, supongo que sería gracioso en su cabeza, sería espectacular o lo que sea. A mí no me hacía mucho eso, la verdad. Pero eso, te tirabas como unos 20 minutos en el lobby y luego se te iba un gilipollas. O no hace falta que te estuviese troleando, simplemente se te iba pues porque le estaba dando de comer a su puto hijo, tío. O se estaba haciendo un tremendo pajote y pues se le olvidaba piquear y punto. Entonces, punto muy positivo, la verdad, para mis compas de hi-rez por cambiar eso, porque era bastante malardo, no te voy a engañar. Más o menos como la mierda que acabo de hacer yo ahí, pues más o menos. O sea, te consumía muchísimo tiempo para que luego pues te secuestrasen en la partida, o quizás le diese un F6 random al 10, ¿sabes? Entonces, para eso no me mantengáis aquí secuestrado, como decía el Marquitos. Y nos podemos ir a otra partida, que los lobbies son rápidos ahora, tal, no sé qué, no sé cuánto. Ya está. Me estoy cabreando porque estoy haciendo ¡mierda! Gracias, no quería jugar más.
Game 3 on the horizon. Aggro got the draft.
Quizás no encontraron el teclado, sí, porque para piquear necesitan el teclado. ¿Cuántos años tienes? 28. Me he pasado aquí a los 200 años y encuentro a Warchi. Julio, me he pasado aquí a los 200 años y me encuentro a Warchi. Julio, yo no entiendo. Que te has pasado 200 años mirando. Oye, no entiendo nada, tío. Ni no entender.
Because otherwise, you're hoping for wins up against the Bolts and the Titans. Not an easy task to overcome.
¿Qué te parece a Warchi? ¡Ah! Que te has pasado aquí 200 años y me encuentro a Warchi de que yo soy Warchi.
Now,
no.
that being said, I don't think that the Scarabs can let their foot off the gas in this game because you can't count your chickens before they hatch. There's a long series still. These guys are veterans on the other side.
Also, we're saying if you don't win the playoffs, you still have to go.
Bueno, Ropiper. Madre mía, madre
They
mía.
gotta get it going. They gotta get it going now. This set has spiraled a bit. Solar Scarabs in game 1 take it to them. They blank the only
Muy sexy, Ropiper,
and into game 3, and the draftsmith have been the topic of conversation from game 1 to game 2, now on to game 3. All of us thought this was Tsukiyomi jungle, but when SOTs on your team can play these styles of picks in the solo lane,
Necesitas Insta, Miguel, tío.
I will agree with Aggro in that I think the Solar Scarabs have primed themselves for a win
Vete al
just
Insta,
through
tío.
drafting alone. But it is worth noting the
¿Qué pasa, like?
execution is going to be hard to come by. Who's burning beads for the Solar Scarabs? Maybe inbound can occasionally find 1 or 2 targets with the stuns. If you're lucky, Baronic's just using his ultimate off a free hand and burning a beads that way. But outside of that, it generally just is Scream. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. There's not too much inherent CC immunity on the Oni Warriors, just Dardes with the Golden Apple. So if Scream burns beads with Pal, he can walk back, go farm for a little bit, come back 50, 60 seconds later, and then get the kill in his own right. But that's hard to execute on. So the Solar Scarabs have a great draft, but they've got to perform.
Yeah, you put down the primer, you still got to paint the
Y
wall.
yo, Johan, como coño lo sabes, cabrón.
I like that.
Yeah, I was going to gas myself up, but unfortunately, SOT and Nika brawling it out here. Oh no, is it going to start the same way as game number 2? No, it's not. Neomon will walk away this time. But unfortunate starts this
Cojones, tío.
Warriors inbound plus Stewart have already found themselves some pressure. I think it's worth giving inbound some love here, Myth. This was a Yamoja pick that was like 0-7 at one point for inbound. And I think the fact that we're not even talking about that anymore has proven that inbound has flipped the script, changed the story a bit about the way that he's able to play Yamoja.
Yeah, his Yamoja has very recently become
¿De qué conoces a Ropiper?
in the league. I mean, it used to be all the teams were
Ah, no, ya me acuerdo.
through, but now
Que abrió el...
Is here.
No, Miguel.
Defensive play style from the Oni
O
Warriors.
sea, el Ropiper lo tenía en privado y cuando lo puso en abierto, todas las solicitudes de seguimiento y eso se le siguieron automáticamente. Creo que dijo eso. Pero me he cagado, hermano, cuando ha dicho de Nochevieja que sexy. Me he cagado que flipa, tío, cojones, tío. ¿Cómo sabe, hermano? Me ha hackeado el móvil. Es un puto de motes, tío.
Small instances of CC for the Oni Warriors. Maybe you can do stuff like this, find an invade onto Scream, who gets knocked up.
Ojo porque Scream huele a muerto, huge stun.
The Oni Warriors, they have started off game 3 in the perfect way. They shut down the Daji.
great job slowing down that Pal from coming online. The Oni Warriors accurately identified.
Stuart tiene flow, la verdad. Pero su cam está hecho una mierda, creo.
It is a strong, standard Smite composition. Each one of these pieces individually is incredibly good. But Neomon in some trouble yet again.
Oh, you can't die over here in
Neiruma, puedes parar ya, tío.
been in red HP for what feels like the last couple of trades there in that lane. He is out of potions as well, and so he'll head on back to base.
Hoy Battle Rite, hoy huele bien Battle Rite porque le dije al Miguel antes que si nos echábamos unos games. Luego estaremos más o menos. Uf.
And a swift answer back by the Solar Scarabs to get a kill on board.
Just paying it forward, the exact same play, but this time Uno
¿Quién es Stuart? Creo que lo cogieron de la SML de DNA.
But I want to go back into the analysis of the Oni Warriors composition. Each piece is good. You've got late game win composition or late game team fight wins built into your draft just because Terra exists on that side. You've got pressure in the solo lane, or maybe pressure over in the right.
He's in
Nika in some trouble.
SOT is low, but Nika dashed on by Scream. Scream still level 4. Is there enough damage? There's gotta be. Caltrops go down, and so does Nika, and the Solar Scarabs pay another visit
Cubo.
to the solo lane. Will it be paid off though? Cubo Fred has a route into this lane. Cubo Fred, oh,
Like
what a
beats.
timing on the taunt, the knock up there.
Se muere.
On the SOT, but beneath this tier 1 tower, the heal from the 9 turns blessing will save his life.
Qué
Neilman
pesado es el
right.
Tsukuyomi, tío. Encima
So
con una
it's in
media,
there, but
hermano.
I think that 1 for none is where we'll stand.
Neilman might have kill potential.
Un narco
because
ruso,
how
tío.
low SOT is.
A mí lo que me preocupa, tío, es que no se le entiende, tío. Bueno, yo sí lo entiendo, pero a duras penas.
Are still able to establish themselves a small lead, and Stewart solo invading up against Vote. Soul doesn't have that kind of pressure. That's not what you picked this god for.
Disapparate is gone. Vote still has Dark Portal beads used by Stewart.
¿Se muere?
Avoided.
Muy bien, Neiruma, la verdad.
Goes in through the pillar, and Stewart will end
Muy
up
pardillo de
dying.
Stewart, la verdad,
A lot of pressure on the left side of the map, outside of an early kill in game 2.
Ha pecado de
Looks
novato.
like the duo lane has just been left to chill and farm, and Stewart learns the hard way that you can't rest on your laurels.
Stewart very nearly works his way out there. And
Juega bien. A ver, tienen sus partidas decentillas, pero yo lo pondría como el peor de la SPL. Bueno, pondría a Milito peor que Stuart.
Probably has the advantage in the 1v1 right now, as both ADCs are level 6, both hunters rather. But Izanami auto attacks the entire wave with every single.
No es que sea malo, simplemente es nuevo. Y creo que se nota un montón.
Stewart establishing dominance in the long. Does cost him his life and his beads though. So keep your eyes on Cubo Fred. He should have a clear target going forward.
And Vote at the end of the day, on the back end of that kill, was able to invade Stewart's purple buff, and so at least the Oni Warriors get that back. But does show you an inkling of where the pressure has been pushing here in this lane. Stewart already finishes off his first ring. Devour's Gauntlet for Vote. So that'll be a nice little power spike for both of these hunters. Something that Des mentioned, Myth, that I tend to agree with here is the need to be active for Cubo Fred here in this game. You know, Scream on the Kali, got the wheels turning in the last game. Cubo Fred on this Erlong.
¿Rabana es viable en la solo? No.
When you're on this Erlong, early in the game, Mannequins, Crusher, that's where you want to start to find some impact.
It is. He's hit himself a very
El peor support de la SPL es Irrafer.
They want to engage.
Dashing out his Vote.
Ficharía Shaq para la SPL, ¿tú crees?
That's the question. Ult is here for Scream. Beads in range for Nika, and he will use them. Piercing Moonlight under the tier 1 tower, but the tower returning a lot of damage. Sustain there for Nika as well. Neilman, Cubo Fred, they're answering quickly.
Tienen que intentar más.
¡Una
Jux!
Oh, he avoids the stun, gets the stun onto Nika. But it's depth at whose hand is the question, and Nika's the answer.
SOT drops down the Caltrops on the wave, just trying to make sure he finds some farm as the minions kill each other, but very nearly was able to shut down Nika. Had Scream not gone in.
Ah, que sí, Juancho. Pues no sé, la verdad, pero se lo están pelando.
Druid stands heal that tops him off. Double target means that he's healing a little bit more there. Nika, though, has to play safe in this lane. 1 level lead for the RDO.
3 versus 2 impending here on right. Dash in from Scream. 9 turns blessed.
Ojo.
From Cubo Fred. Big damage onto Scream. River's Rebuke separates us out, but Scream, he is living, he is not dying, he is walking away from this
Yo creo que
fight.
vive, ¿eh?
Cubo Fred has no mana.
Still healing.
Neilma has no HP.
Hermano, ¿por qué está Yemoja open, tío?
The lead for the Oni Warrior. Scream turns around the early woes, and it's a double kill for the Scarabs to get back in the game.
So the Oni Warriors, they've got one opportunity in that they need to make sure that only one person's beads are down at any given time. If more people are forced to use beads in these engagements, as we just saw, it makes it so much easier for Scream to get proactive on the map. Now Scream has 2 targets for the next 75 seconds that just died to Pal Out. Nika
Sería la segunda mascota en toda la historia de Smite con Petty Cuban. Creo que he entendido esa referencia, Miguel. Creo que he entendido esa referencia.
Or Cubo Fred in the jungle now just has to hope that the healing from 9 turns blessing is enough.
Yep.
And clearly from that last engagement, it was not.
¿Se hace bully que estarías en Rankeds? No.
Solar Scarabs, they need to make a power play off of this.
O sea, esa build ahora un Jotuns que es su Kuyomi, ¿sabes? No es un... No es un tir.
Oh, this invade didn't go so great, this gank didn't go so great. Let's go ahead and rest for a little bit, see if we can find
Con otro mid los Solares Scarabs estarían más arriba.
We have to try
Es que más arriba significaría ganar a los Oni Warriors.
fighting back in game 3.
Yeah, but
Quizás
see,
sí, porque el Boroni... Bueno, estos sets está jugando bien, sorprendentemente. Pero... Es que los Oni Warriors... El ping creo que les condiciona demasiado a su medio y su jungla. Prefirieron banear a Hades y no Yemoja. La verdad que es duro, ¿eh? Es duro, es duro.
¿Qué
vas a bordo?
Whoa!
Uy, la ulti, porque no ha tirado ulti el Dardez. Bueno, supongo que tenía ulti. Smart. Road to 80. ¿Cuánto te queda? Poco, ¿no?
That's one answer for the Oni Warriors to control Scream as well. Can't utilize Palau aggressively if he's forced to use it defensively every single time. So a great play there by Neomaj to keep his team a little bit safer.
Uno,
Simple
nice.
aggressing onto the dodge.
Me gusta, me gusta.
Has already thrown out some good damage here, not only in the mid lane, but on some poking and prodding after the fact. Chronos pendant into flat pen for the time being. Divine Ruin could feel nice up against some of the builds the Solar Scarabs are looking at here. And I was briefly able to get into it, Myth, but I'm curious your thoughts on this Discordia, because it seems like a pick that feels good for Dardez, right? It's not one
Arteo está rota o soy yo. Está rota.
going for, but Dardez has shown us leaning into the Heras,
Oh,
the
sí.
Oregons, maybe the Discordias is where he'll make his biggest impact.
I like just straight up Discordia in general, blanket statement, but especially into this composition. Not only is it the only CC immune ultimate that you've got on your side, so it doesn't have to worry about Palau as much as some of his allies.
Ese puto emote,
But also
tío.
the self-peel potential of Strife up against gods.
Liars o Scream. Creo que el Liars es mejor porque además su equipo acompaña más. Aunque Scream también está jugando super clean. Pero creo que el Layers diff es mucho mayor que Scream diff. Sobre todo en las partidas ayer contra el... Contra los Balls, hermano.
Ineffective in the kill department, not ineffective in the burning utility department. That's ult down from Dardez this time. Cuba Fred has used his ult elsewhere in this fight as well. But you can already see, Myth, some of the concerns that you raised earlier in this game starting to come to fruition, where it's Scream, Palau every single time. But it feels like outside of that one jungle fight, there's been an answer every single time, whether it's the beads that are still there, or in this case, the CC Immune Ultimate from Dardez. And we have not seen that capitalized yet by any of the smaller instances of CC from the Solar Scarab. So, at least playing around some of the weaknesses well early on, 12 minutes in, are the Warriors.
Right now, it's just a pacing issue for Scream. He goes in, he burns one target's worth of beads, and then he waits a very long time to try again. He's got to pick up the pace if he wants to find value at this point in the game, or maybe the Solar Scarabs are relying on their ability to win out in these late-game team fights. They do have great scaling and great team fight presence around these neutral objectives. Double Hunter composition, one magical, one physical between Veronica and Stewart.
Y yo, eso fue duro, ¿eh?
You've got the healing of Yamoja as well as her ability to separate these engagements around.
¿A qué le iría si hubiera la final Levis contra Titans?
And the die potential.
Capaz gana Leviatanes, la verdad.
Targets, vote Dardez could work out for them, but I think the Solar Scarabs would really like to find at least a couple more kills off of the back of Scream before some more CC immunity, before some more defensive relics become available to the Oni Warriors. Magi's Blessing as a pickup for just about anybody on the Warriors will likely be good, considering CC seems to be lacking from the Solar Scarabs as of now, that is. Scream the only one burning beads on their side. I'm excited to see how this one pans out. The Oni Warriors have a significant advantage in the solo lane. Nika been dominating SOT one level down and stuck inside of his tower.
El weekend fue el meme principal, tío.
With Nika involved, that could be one way back in.
That's not to say, Myth, that Scream hasn't been active. Just a bit delayed between engagements.
En una season, será en un split, cabrón.
100% kill participation for the jungler, and that's a bit of
Será en un split.
Scarabs have been playing, where Scream is all of the kill impact early on in this game. That
Hombre, ¿tú qué crees, gordo? ¿Tú qué crees? Había 8 equipos y jugabas contra 7, 2 veces. Es decir, 14 partidos.
Warriors didn't want to throw.
Divide 60 entre 14.
Here, Myth, on the left side of the map. And that's been the early spike.
Creo que da como 4 y pico, ¿no? 4 y pico largo, ¿no? Algo así. De muertes por partida. ¿Me lo explicas? Por favor, me lo explicas. Pa' un jungla, ¿eh? ¿A quién pillaron? Al Cino, ¿no?
This game was even by about maybe 50 gold separating them just a moment ago, but the Solar Scarabs are slowly accruing a very large experience.
Acabo de llegar, ¿cómo va el día? Vamos guay, hermano. Han ganado Jade Dragons 3-0 y los Oni Warriors versus los Scarabs van 0-2. Bastante clean los Scarabs. Esta partida, bueno, ya llevan más kills los Oni Warriors que en todas las dos partidas anteriores, pero bueno. El Labra estaba jugando de medio. Metieron al Cino. ¿El Labra lo metieron, o sea, lo jugó al final de medio? No me acuerdo. ¿Eso fue el año pasado?
Don't be fooled, the Gold Fury just procking on whoever's there. The Oni Warriors have not started it up just yet. 5 versus 5. This is a fight we have not seen until the end of the game. In games 1 and 2.
Yo, Alex. Muchísimas gracias, hermano, por esos 4 meses. Muchas gracias, hermano.
But it's going to have to fill up that health bar quickly because the Gold Fury started up by the Oni Warriors. A little bit of crit for vote. That's connecting onto the Gold Fury. Everyone has their relics going into this next fight. Inbound.
Great ult
for the Rivers Rebuke, and it is on to Nilma. 3 stuns on the backside, though. Keep the Solar Scarabs right where they are. An early loss in this fight, but that's a huge ultimate.
Qué buena ulti el Dardet, though. Dios, qué buena ulti del Dardet, Ojito porque esta teamfight 3-1.
Cuvo Fred with that initiation. The start of the fight goes incredibly well for the Solar Scarabs. It was a Rivers Rebuke off of Nilma dashing in, isolates him, but too much commitment from the Solar Scarabs onto the support opens them up to the re-engage. Oni Warriors, Cuvo Fred blinks in, 3-man ultimate, 3-man knockup. Dardes slams everybody with literally every bit of damage that he's got. And the Oni Warriors establish themselves a small lead 16 minutes in. Large than what we saw from the Scarabs so far this game. Nearly, what is that, 1,500 gold for them? And a little bit of experience, 50 experience, now 600. It's close still, and the Solar Scarabs, they might be able to close this up if they pick up the Pyro.
But they don't, they won't. No chance, that's your fault, Myth. Every ounce of that is you. Yeah, if they pick up the Pyro while Cubo stands menacingly to throw the pin in, and when it rains, it pours, and the Solar Scarabs, they've been flawless.
Y yo, ¿os imagináis que le da al puto palao de los cojones, tío? Yo me quedaría calvo, la verdad.
That's a great apple, great setup from Dart, or from Cubo Fred rather, capitalized on by Dart.
Cyclone o Zapman, Cyclone.
And I think it's so
¿Qué comparación es esa, Alex?
To maintain that pace if you're Cubo Fred, because not only Fred, but it feels like Myth Erlong Shen in general.
No sé, el Stuart console no me está convenciendo, la verdad.
Just kind of fallen off the radar at points throughout this year where you get to the late game and you just kind of forget an Erlong Shen is a part of the game. Cubo rather has not.
Pico Way hubiese llegado a algo. No sé, la verdad. Capaz sí, ¿no? No sé cómo andaría de inglés. Pero bueno. A la SML mínimo sí, evidentemente.
Are you going to have impact if you're dead, though? That's the question. Cubo Fred, 9 turns blessing out, healing on the other end. Good Riptide from inbound, pulls Neoma right back into the fight, but that's not a fight the Scarabs are looking for. Ult down for Cubo Fred.
Top en un server Brazuca, ¿cuánto mérito tiene? Si no es que quedes top, si yo lo veía decentillo, la verdad. Pero, hombre, de ahí a... De verse decentillo y carrear partidas y demás, a llegar a algo, pues no sé, la verdad.
As we have not seen the Oni Warriors on the proactive until this game just now, but 3,000 gold in the lead, experience starting to be in their favor. I think the Oni Warriors are now in a position where they can try and push this lead even further. Having stripped both neutral objectives means that the only place they can go is towards some of these tier
Un resumen
ones.
de lo que ha pasado. hi-rez se ha ganado 3-0 a Valkyrias.
Smith, I'm glad you bring up
Bastante
Charybdis
easy.
here,
Y
because
luego
every
Solar
game
Scarabs ha
was,
sacado
we sort of set the
muy
stage.
buenos
Well, we saw
games
Cyclone's
contra Oni
been
Warriors
doing
que
this
se
thing
están
in
viendo un
aggressive
poco
nature.
malardos. Pero esta
Yesterday,
partida están...
Veronica's got some shoes to fill now. Let's continue
Bueno,
this
pues ahora van
trend
3K por encima.
Charybdis is. And I think he's
Porque
got-
asumes
up to
que
this
los de
point in the
Brasil
set so
son
far,
bots.
There's been a lot going right for the Solar Scarabs. Veronic on Charybdis has been one of those things that's been going right.
Yeah, he's been able to find a good deal of damage in the team.
Porque asumes que los de tercera regional de fútbol no le podrían ganar a un equipo de primera.
Try to establish pressure early on. Not really
Que luego le pueden ganar.
just wait
Quizás.
until late game. Says, I'm playing hunters, but in the center of the map, and that's the only difference right now.
Pero vamos.
Those ultimates though have been impactful from him.
Asumir,
As well as finishing off some kills
asumes.
for his squad. If we're talking about the hunters in this game, I think you got to talk about Stewart on this Soul. 0-2, only 1 assist right now. So has started to hit some very significant power spikes. Telkine's ring finished up, but hasn't been a whole lot of damage from the Soul or Stewart in general so far this set. If the Solar Scarabs need some help to close it out, I think it's going to come from the Hunter.
So the Solar Scarabs falling a bit behind here in this game, Myth. And it's not something we've seen up to this point. It's easy to win when you're thousands of gold up at every moment. And now, that's not to take away from the Scarabs. They handed themselves thousands of gold every minute. Now you're fighting from behind. It's a different look at a game from what we've seen up to this point. And I think Stewart's a good place to look as well. 2 levels down, needing to scale up into things. So that's where the Oni Warriors can maybe leverage some pressure around an Oni Fury that'll be spawning shortly. Pyromancer just a bit behind that. And so the Oni Warriors, Myth, actually almost in Solar Scarabs.
Me apoyarán mañana, por supuesto. ¿A qué hora tenías que jugar? ¿A las 5? Ah, no, mañana lo mandabas a las 5, era, ¿no? ¿A qué era el torneo, Miguel, tío?
Scream has slowed down in this game. Makes his way to right. Found early kills and early pressure.
A las 6. Uff. Hombre, te voy a estar mirando la segunda pantalla. Ay, oh, qué putada, tío. Justo me tiene que pillar con esta mierda. Es que además mañana hay partidazos. Me llegas a decir que son los hi-rez versus Valkyrias. Pues digo, 3-0 de hi-rez y no los veo, ¿sabes? Pero... pero sí, te voy a mirar. Dura 2 minutos el combate. ¿Solo tienes que jugar una? ¿Solo tienes que jugar una? Dos si llega a la final. O sea, una y llegas a la final y esa es tu segunda partida. O juegas cuarto, semifinal y la final. Ah, somos 4. Y yo que no quiero spoiler, loco. Ojo, buena ulti del Sword Troll, maybe.
Now they see SOT, he's all alone, and he's not tanky enough to survive this just yet, but inbound, chasing down backliners of the Warriors.
Dios, que esto es lo más raro. ¡Ojo!
Right back the other way. Nika dashes back through. SOT will live no longer, and it's a killing spree for Dardes.
SOT lived for so ridiculously long, distracting so many members of the Oni Warriors, but the Solar Scarabs were not able to capitalize on it. Not enough damage.
Bueno, pues Miguel, te miraré.
Riptides, all there to make sure SOT survives for as long as humanly possible. Even the damage output favoring the Solar Scarabs in that fight, but they can't finish off their kills. And now the Oni Warriors with 30
Gordo, ¿cuánto dura la partida?
Dead for that entire 30. Regroup on the Fire Giant yet again.
I don't think it can be understated, Myth, how
Del
important
Aquiles.
this game is between these two teams. You're in a group with the Olympus Bolts and the Tartarus Titans, fighting for one of the top 3 spots. Seeding-wise, purely seeding-wise, the Warriors and the Scarabs are in the bottom 2. And so it's not maybe overextending.
26 mins, vale.
This could be the
A ver, si ganan los Scarabs, la hacemos. Si ganan los Warriors, depende de cuánto dure la partida. Pues eso. Tampoco te quiero hacer quedarte tarde si no quieres, pero bueno, si vamos al Battle Rite, Pues
That's what the Oni Warriors are fighting against here, and they've done a good job of it in game number 3, finding answers to what the Solar Scarabs have thrown at them.
hoy a las predicciones estoy haciendo cortitas hoy porque mañana se vienen partidas importantes y quiero reservaros los puntillos. Que sí o que no. Si gana Scarabs, sí, for sure. Y si gana Oni Warriors y luego gana Scarabs, depende de lo que tarden, porque tampoco quiero terminar el streaming a la 1, porque quiero cenar y demás, ¿sabes? Porque el Scream, ¿por qué le han dejado tan solo, tío? ¿Quién juega mañana? Leviatanes versus Jade Dragons. Y no estoy seguro si Titans versus Scarabs o si Bolts versus Oni Warriors o Titan Oni Warriors, no sé.
He says, okay, maybe I pull Cubo for Ed. Wait, no, Magi's Blessing still available. Maybe I pull Nika. Well, not exactly the target that I want. That's an RDO. Pulls him anyway.
Se huele a 3-2, Miguel. Se huele a 3-2.
Solar Scarabs, they are struggling.
¿A quién le vas? ¿A quién le vas? Levi versus Jade. Creo que los Levis estaban mejor.
Gold lead and Fire Giant on 5. Plenty of towers left to collect. They've got a great position for the rest of this game.
You smell that, Myth?
Is that a game 4?
Yeah, smells like, it's weird that game 4 smells like pumpkin spice, isn't it?
I wouldn't know. I've never had it.
That's right. Have you truthfully never had pumpkin spice?
No, I've had pumpkin spice.
Okay,
I had a girlfriend like one time.
Is that the precursor?
That's right.
If you've dated someone, you've had pumpkin spice. Otherwise, you have not.
Well, as a guy.
As a guy, right, of course. Well, the Oni Warriors, they're throwing out game 4 scents here. But we've just gone into the oven.
El ban de Adel los perjudicó. No sé, estoy viendo cosas raras, la verdad. Yo, el Stuart con Sol no me convence. Y luego la Yemoja del Inbowlet siempre pierde. Siempre pierde, en todas las partidas pierde. Este es un buen split push, Este es un muy buen split push, ¿Van a obligar a alguien a vaquearse a por el Fénix, quizás? Creo que llegan antes a Fénix los de Solar Scarabs. Ojo, se estaba quedando el Dardef, qué buen split, cabrón. Tienen que iniciar ahora, for sure. Vale, no, los Oni Warriors. O sea, es que no sabía que se había quedado también el Neiruma. O sea, el Nika. El Nika, perdón. Es bueno tu pareceo, tiene un nivel normal de SPL, ¿Por qué Jade ha bajado tanto de nivel o será que los demás subieron de nivel? No, han bajado de nivel. No sé por qué, la verdad.
Onto the Titan of the Solar Scarabs. It still is a minute and a half with Fire Giant. The Oni Warriors regrouping here. And with this amount of time to work with, I think we could be looking at a Phoenix Siege. And the siege of the Oni Warriors is strong. It is a one-note engage. Nika, Neilma, Cuvo Fred going in, applying CC, or at least applying Earthen Fury to as many targets as possible. And when you're in that situation, as a
ojito, algún piqueo.
Don't want to fight anymore. The damage output of the Warriors is incredibly high. What's come back to bite them, and it was my initial concern so far.
La verdad no me apetecería ver un Game 4, la verdad. Porque si gana ahora mismo Oni Warriors, va a haber Game 5, for sure. Apaga y vámonos. No, no siendo el partido, lo estoy grabando, no me hagas spoiler, por favor.
Thousand damage behind his Dardes, but it's a big power spike going into this next fight. Obsidian Shard ready to go. Everyone on the Oni Warriors have their beads as well.
Yo creo que va a ganar Solar Scarabs. Van a hacer una muy buena defensa con la ulti del Inbowner.
to fight into
Bueno,
Solar Scarabs
ya no
out
tienen
there.
fire.
20 seconds left on the FG buff, and it looks like that's all the Oni Warriors will look for.
Hesitant engagement
Yo
of
no.
the Oni
Y yo,
Warriors.
Miguel, eres un gafe, cabrón.
Solar Scarabs, and the Scarabs, simply by showing up, are able to stop
Desempolvar la Switch la desempolvaré cuando salgan los remakes del plata, del perla y el diamante.
Left available, wards in pocket as well.
Tengo que poner todavía el Donation Goal, la verdad, porque no me quiero gastar 60 euros de mi bolsillo. ¿Sale mañana? No sale mañana.
Right back to where they are just now, towards that fire giant, going to be spawning up in just under a minute. The Solar Scarabs have not been able to win a fight in neutral territory for the last 10 or so minutes. I'm sure they would love to change their fate here. It is a significant stack from the Solar Scarabs. 4 on the right-hand side of the map. The only one not
19 de noviembre, cabrón.
on the left, maybe decides to rejoin his team after headed back to base. Solar Scarabs on the scene first. Maybe to establish a little bit of vision.
Yeah.
Force the
¿El
Oni
Pokémonito
Warriors
se murió ya o qué?
I mean, they know Scream is here. Sprinkling of wards over by those harpies. Kind of
Por cierto,
right outside the fire giant pit.
espero que el Hendrix haya apostado mal.
Plotted out on his way in. Similar arc of ward coverage though for the Solar Scarabs. Both teams privy to the positioning of one another. This will be an enhanced fire giant the moment it spawns. And so the Solar Scarabs kind of soft show up.
¿Qué pensabas de Divios en su prime? Divios me gustaba bastante, la verdad. Cuando ganó el mundial me descojoné vivo con las strats, un gap solo con TP. Han puesto a Mewtwo no, pero han puesto al Mamoswine, tío. El Mamoswine me gustaba. ¡Ojito al Scream! ¡Nice! Ojito Miguel que no, ojito que gana la teamfight ahora. ¿Qué hacen Inbounded?
Watch inbound. Healing. Double stun.
Ay, Dios, tío. Quillo, Inbounded. No cojas la puta Yemoja otra vez, tío, que eres muy malo, cabrón. Para ya, tío. Qué malo es, tío. Y yo, Game 4, tío.
It will not be, and now the Solar Scarabs down to just Scream and Stewart, and Scream has stuck around, does not have Palaos, but
Puto Inbounded, tío.
right outside
Scream, róbalo y mata a alguien, por favor.
and he just does not have the time. He'll get
Vaya.
spotted out by the ward coverage, but it's enhanced fire giant for all 5 members of the Oni Warriors.
Buen passing.
Scream gets caught here, Myth. That's pretty impactful. Apple no good, but damage sure is from Dardes. And that is a
Game
big stack.
4,
Scream
tío.
gone for the next minute, and the Oni Warriors barrel down the right side of the map.
They've already nearly approached fully build 6 items, so the Oni Warriors don't need to head back to base. Instead, want to utilize
¿Qué hace? Hombre, supongo que ha intentado matar a Discordia que no tenía bits. Pero
He's going to go back to base late. Oni Warriors, this one's free.
Oni Warriors keeping things interesting here. The pumpkin spice heating up a little bit further, nearly done in the oven for a game 4 between the Scarabs and the Oni Warriors. Mid lane Phoenix will get taken down quickly, and why not shift things over to
la Yemoja del Inbounded es horrorosa, tío. Y el Stuart con la Sol no ha hecho nada. Y que no haya un puto Hades. O sea, que gracias al Hades hayan ganado, tío. Es que
see some of the beads in sync with one another, those that are upgraded coming back a little bit quicker. That's vote. And then Dardes and Neoma had to use theirs right around the same time in that last fight. So again, you know, you get beads stripped away if you're Scream, and then there's little to no impact on the other side. Story's got to be Dardes for me here, Miff. He has gone big in these fights, and at 6:03, supplying a whole
y
lot of
criticaban el ban de Hades.
Got exactly
No lo estábamos
10K.
criticando, simplemente nos estábamos descojonando que como cojones un equipo de SPL tiene que llegar al punto de banear un Hades. Porque no saben cómo controlarlo. Yo, ¿qué pasa, Whiplash?
The Solar Scarabs backline has really been struggling to output anything meaningful. 8,000 damage from Baronic on the Charybdis, only 9,000
Él piensa que su Yemoja es buena.
from Stewart.
Quillo, no lo es, tío. Pierdes todas las partidas, tío, que juegas con Yemoja. Todas. Es horroroso, tío. Por favor, Solar Scarabs, os pido que si vais a perder, perdéis ya, tío. No me reméis para morir en la orilla, tío, porque estoy hasta el pingo, tío. Quiero cenar. No, sí, en Normals el Weekend se pilla una Neza jungla
hefty
Tira
damage
todas las
numbers, at
ultis,
least comparable
claro.
to Dardes. Dardes is doubling up.
Y me pillo un toro a críticos y gano. Claro.
Where to go?
Vote could show up here in this last fight. He's done plenty of structure damage.
Classic.
And that's all the Oni Warriors need. Game number 4, right around the corner of one final team fight for the Oni Warriors. They have been swept in games 1 and 2, decimated even. But they have taken it to the Solar Scarabs in game number 3. Want one more chance, two more
Que yo,
chances, one at a time, and this
vi
is a
en
great
Twitter esa
matchup.
comparación
Warriors getting back into this set.
y me han preguntado que si la Yemoja del Inbound o la Yemoja del Rongyu.
All it takes is a little
¿Quién
unchecked damage to
cojones
load onto that top
ha hecho esa
stage like
comparación?
Comentando.
Lo necesito denunciar a la policía.
Slow, cautious engage from the Oni Warriors.
Unruly Magic does 10% of the Titan's HP on its own. That's how quickly.
¡Ojo!
We are fighting as Inbound throws up the River's Rebuke. Scream is evaporated as Vote will find
Vale,
his first
bien,
kill
bien,
of the
bien.
game
Prefiero
in the
esto.
most pivotal fight of the
Prefiero
game.
esto.
SOT locked in place. Dark Portal
It's done.
finds its way on to the Tsukiyomi yet again. The Oni Warrior surging forward. Goodbye Titan and hello game 4.
Oni Warriors showing some signs of life in the back.
Va a haber
half
3-2,
of this
Miguel.
set. They might
Me da a
go
mí
down,
que va a
they
haber
will
un
not without a
3-2
fight, or
potentorro,
maybe
¿eh?
It's a reverse sweep.
No, it was those chats that we earned him a World's MVP.
I know, but I mean they won the game where he wasn't talking. That's all I'm saying.
He'll take that up with you the next time y'all
I
do
know
golfing.
it.
I
I
can
know.
feel it
He
now.
will.
We'll see what happens. The Solar Scarabs for the first time this
Tiene
set
37, bueno.
will be your first pick team. We'll see what they're going to be changing things up because they've been banning the Morgan, Odin, Kamazats was in their last one, but those two have been the go-tos.
You know what
Now-
I would toss in there instead, though? Instead of that Kamazats? I'd just ban Discordia. I think it's that easy. I really do. I think that
Easy as 1, 2,
Dardes
3.
was so good on this Discordia. I think Erlong Shen is a pick that is so easy to pick around and play around that you don't need to worry about him as much. I think I'd be worried about the Disco. They decided to take out the RDO. Not the direction I necessarily would have gone. They handled it really well in game 1, but is just a guaranteed lane bully pick there for Nika. So makes some sense to take that away.
Trying to slow things down. So Hades the Ola run once again for the Warriors. Last game they rounded this out with Sylvanas, trying to strip something away from Inbound. I will say this, as much as I hate harping on it, Inbound has such great Yemoja plays, and he still loses on the pick. It breaks my heart.
I know.
It really does.
Cursed.
Because it is something that has been a massive improvement from what we once saw. Joining that RDO is going to be the Terra. We've had a lot of Geb talk in the past, wondering if that's going to be a viable option here for the Scarabs, based on what the Warriors decide to ban out.
I mean, it is. It's just a matter of whether or not they want it.
Que no
it's like
pillen
they're
Yemoja,
setting
por
themselves
favor.
up for a Yemoja first pick, though, with the RDO and the Terra bans. I really think that if they were willing to value it over the Geb in the last game, maybe they decide, all right, Yemoja didn't work, let's just pick Geb. I think that's probably the right decision. It's just such an easier god to execute on and is inherently stronger right now, I think, with what he brings to the table. I think the Warriors are trying to decide, will the Scarabs top pick the Geb, or can we maybe get the opportunity because they valued the Terra over it, but now that's off the board. And if the Scarabs valued Yemoja over Geb, then you expect them to take Yemoja, and that would leave you Geb, would be the way it could go. And that's they decide to leave it open. So they ban Odin, makes total sense. That god's been very good. This does leave open Sylvanas as well,
Yeah.
though.
And that's a pick. I will admit, I was not expecting to see go up number 1. I was expecting a whole lot, and maybe having a little bit of time to
And they
talk about what
snapped
was
it.
going to go.
And
That
they
was it.
snapped it. Like,
Sylvanus por encima de un
Sylvanas
Geb.
Open?
Huh.
Give me that. I
Is-
should have had that.
Is he strong enough to warrant this? I mean, we've
No.
seen a couple of teams do this. The Kings did it, and I believe the other day they did it, and they won that game.
He's good. He's good enough to first pick in a world where Geb is banned. I believe.
And Geb was banned that game.
Yeah, I'm down with that. Look, until proven otherwise, I think Geb is just the best god in the game right now. I think he's that good. So I think you should play him. He doesn't have as many.
Al principio de Boronic se hago mierda a sacar del equipo.
I think Sylvanas is actually
Estaba medio preocupado, la verdad.
pretty well because his lane
Y
stays
no
great.
sería muy descabellado que lo hiciesen.
Yeah.
Root pull before he's level 3, easy kill. You know, you can make a lot of stuff happen there.
The thing we've seen a lot of combos, it's been the Sylvanas Izanami combo that just absolutely destroys minions overall. But if you're looking to make up for the lack of pressure in lane, Izanami seems like a great way to balance it out.
Agreed.
Something else that we've been talking about
Cthulhu.
a ton
Eh.
the last couple of weeks. has been this Cthulhu. That 63% win rate.
No hay predict. ¡Hostia, no he hecho!
Is well earned. So we'll see if this is going to be worthwhile for them. Also,
me harán ver un game 5. Sí, no. Vale, tenéis 10 minutos, chavales. ¿Me harán ver otro puto game? ¿Sí o no? O ganará Solar Scarabs.
Two out of those three, you just don't want to give good teams the same look at the same pick that many times, unless it's totally dominating. So, I like the top three for the Scarabs. That being said, I mean, the Warriors, they get Geb, Iza, and Ami, so to cover the Geb weakness in lane, they get the Iza.
A este paso me bate el
I
Rite.
think is maybe the strongest god in the game.
Sí, hermano. O sea, mira, termino esto, ceno, bate el Rite y me pongo a ver el partido de fútbol. Y luego me hago un pajote, como lo de Miguel.
Same thing, jungle. Smart. As well as the solo laner for the other side. The Erlong Shen was a huge thorn in their side. Set up a lot, as you had highlighted. That's something they're
Te abro el partido si quieres. No, por favor.
Again, maybe not something I expected to see, but
Para.
Understandable.
Yeah, understandable. I mean, you're looking for Fred to have something.
Otra puta discordia, verás tú. Hombre, discordia Intu Cthulhu es medio malarda. Mientras no saquen al solo troll de la partida, está bastante bien. Así que chilling.
So I think getting Fred something with some mobility in this instance could be a good look for them. I mean, the Hunbats that he played earlier didn't have a great game on it, but could go that direction. I think Camazotz is probably fine here in this draft. It would mean that I think Nika needs more CC coming out of the solo lane, but overall, I mean, Kama's a god that Fred's been comfortable on. Serket is open. You could pick that, though I think Cthulhu cares so little about what Serket's doing the entirety of the game that maybe de-incentivizes me, but I like Serket up against Sylvanas Heim and insert mage here.
Y yo, no.
Sure.
No.
Yeah, whatever. We didn't need to talk about any, like, yeah.
Como me hagan ver un quinto game porque han perdido contra una puta Mulan, verás.
Junglers to talk to you about, like Achilles being banned, Kali being banned. I was going to ask about Nemesis and say things about dealing with Cthulhu.
Yeah.
Vamos, Hurriwin. Dame poder.
We've seen her a lot in the SCC. We've seen her a few times here in the
Que yo la verdad es que les ha quedado súper guapo el estudio, poca broma. Está guapo, A ver qué hacen para Navidad.
No. I don't know how this lane's gonna go. Well, you know, she just got a buff to training exercise, so her abilities evolve more quickly.
Le subieron el daño.
We like that. But pretty unproven.
Vale.
I'd say, and how good it's gonna be. Now, when Mulan gets ahead, absolute lane dominator. Complete lane bully, just dominates the lane.
No sé, o sea, Tarmac, eso es como si a un ciego le dices, oye mira, que ahora en vez de ver todo negro, ves todo gris. Exactamente lo mismo, hermano, ya te lo digo yo. Mulan no sirve para absolutamente nada. Bueno, espérate porque hay una Nugua, capaz si sirve para algo. Espérate que capaz si sirve para algo. ¿A ti no te gustaba mucho cuando salió? Estoy flipando. Sí, o sea, si me gusta el pick, me gustaba jugarlo, el problema es que es una mierda. Y cuando un pick es una mierda, te deja de gustar de jugarlo.
Yeah, and you only get one Geb shield.
Yeah, exactly. See,
so you can't get them all. That's the strat.
She
Look,
stuns.
They
have that
Nemesis.
I am a notorious Nuwa apologist.
Okay.
I love this god. I think she brings way more utility than most people give her credit for.
I love Nuwa.
I think Nuwa's great.
I loved Old Wa more, but I still like Nuwa.
And you know what? What Nuwa does best, it's not just press 4, hit the entire team. It's that she kills tanks pretty well. Because she prot shreds them. A root is oftentimes death against frontliners. I think that she can kill this Geb pretty easily. You know, it just takes root, minion combo.
Que ocupa Mulan para ser un buen pick, rework. El 1 ese apestoso se lo tienen que cambiar. Y le tienen que poner un dash. O... Sí, un dash. De alguna manera le tienen que poner un dash.
They've got good
O sea, que el dash sea, o sea, o eso o que el 3 sea instant casi.
I think Fred has gone with a pretty, obviously a light CC pick here in this Nemesis, and I'm a little worried about how this right side of the map is going to go. You know, can Fred really be an invade assistant with something like the Nem in the early game? I really feel like the Warriors' best win condition here is just facilitating Nika, making sure that he can just remove this Nuwa from every engagement, make sure she does absolutely nothing. That's the easiest way for the Warriors to win. But if this laning phase goes even, if Solar Troll and Nika are at the same point, you know, 15, 20 minutes in on their first rotations to big 5-on-5s, I think the Scarabs 5-on-5 is just better.
That makes things a little interesting for him. We are potentially going to a game number 5. We'll see if the Warriors can provide that or if the Scarabs can close it out right here in game number 4.
Spiciness continues of the pumpkin variety, Myth, as we go into game number 4. We're riding with that one, I think, going into game number 4. Pumpkin spice will be the theme of this one. Or maybe it'll be Nika on Mulan. Could be Baronic on Nuwa, Myth, and those are the 2 additions to the unique club here in game 4 of this set.
Yeah, I think you got to start with the Mulan. She sees a change recently, which is the only reason I can assume Nika is going towards this pick. Maybe the most important change being that training exercise levels up a little bit more quickly. You're going to get that sustain in lane a little bit more quickly. Meaning that
bueno, ahí tenéis la apuesta, por cierto, chavales.
That generally does struggle against lane bullies. You're going to have a significant advantage, but Aggro brings up a great point on the desk. If you lock in Mulan and you are not utilizing that massive aggression, that pressure that she generates out of the solo to invade blue buffs, back camps, controlling those singular harpies around the soul lane, you're probably not getting the value from Mulan. If Nika doesn't rotate into the first team fight with a 2 or 3 level lead, you're probably not getting value from this Mulan whatsoever.
Hostia, la cam, tío.
On the Oni Warriors soul lane to perform here on an unorthodox pick. Maybe we see that attention shifted, though, because of the other unorthodox pick in the game, Nuwa. Hugo Fred very likely could just say, I want to shut down Baronic and leave Nika to his own devices. I don't think you can, though. I think, if anything, Nika locking in this aggressive pick is going to buy the time for Nuwa in mid to just free farm.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic. You know, Nuwa has self-peel along the lines.
A lot of it.
You know,
bueno, a lot of self-peel tampoco.
Go up into the snipes, things like that. Feels like that is what hopefully in this kit makes up for the general lack of mobility. You can drop the soldier down, stun, somebody running at you, use your ult as well. But that being said, lack of mobility in the kit outside of walking around in your mist, I suppose, is that a real threat here that the Oni Warriors can capitalize on?
If Baronic's mist is down and Cubo Fred is nearby, that ultimate can just be a death sentence for Nuwa, but yet again, Cubo Fred's got another target that he has to concern himself with his ultimate. The SOT can't be allowed as Stardust. He's falling low.
Ooh, little bit of damage from Baronic, misses on the side.
¿Qué pasa, meme?
Screamed it a lot there.
Espero que Baronic no falle ultis. Hombre, espero que no, la verdad.
Drop down from Dardes. Yeah, my man is here and he's walking into lane. Or maybe it's Cubo Fred saying, I'm going to chase him back to his speed buff. Blink over the wall. Speed buff. Invade. Good for Cubo Fred. He'll pick it up and he will head on.
¿Se morirá? No creo.
Is here to help
Para un jugador novato, ¿cuál crees que deberían ser el primer Pokémon para comprarme en el Unite? No tengo ni idea, la verdad. Garchomp no. Tío, Baronic, ¿por qué vas con una Nuwa, tío? Espérate que Skin se va a morir también.
First blood plus speed buff to the Warriors.
Great invade from the Oni Warriors, utilizing that early
¿Conoce a Watch en
pressure.
persona? Sí. ¿Es verdad que brilla o es solo un mito? No, sí que brilla.
Warriors speed buff taken away, and Cubo Fred walks out a free man. That's a lot of time spent dedicated towards invading that buff and has not netted Cubo Fred a lead just yet. Just now ticking over to level 4 to match up against Scream. Maybe most important, though, is Baronic falling down in mid, not just in the death column, but also in experience. Just now hitting 4, Dardes bin 5.
Yep, was a 2-level lead for Dardes up until a couple minions get taken down there in that wave. So call it 1.5 levels for the sake of simplicity, and a great start to the Oni Warriors in game number 4. You smell that, Myth? Just kidding.
Oh, good lord, already.
We're way too early in the game for any of that talk. But a kill landing on Anika is
Me van a hacer ver una quinta partida, ¿verdad?
some of that pressure on the right side of the map, whether it's another speed buff invade or it's a blue buff
Bueno, por lo
invade.
menos Invoker va con un Gap y no va con una
Obviously, we
Yemoja.
check your comms, but I joke about maybe some frustration pings going down the mid lane when in reality, in hindsight, it's the only warrior saying, hey, I think he's going to walk back towards his speed. Let's see if we can get something done there, and that's exactly what happens. But it's a completed Blackthorn now for Nico over in solo. Has Warding Sigil there as well. And that's a decent little power spike for this Mulan to continue to put pressure on Sod on Cthulhu.
Yeah, Nika, as of
Coño,
now,
es verdad que el
nobody wants to
hostias.
fight this Mulan. He's already likely got the heal available.
Pues huele mal también,
His output is just crazy. He does have that heal available. Don't fight him.
El
Don't fight on this side of the
tío,
map.
pensaba que era el Gap del... Es que huele peor, Es que huele peor.
So if the Solar Scarabs are able to withstand without falling too far behind, that's one way back in. And it seems like SOT might just have to give up this blue buff, drop down to 50%. Cubo, Fred, and Nika already here.
Blue buff on the exact same timer as one another. So the Oni Warriors have a rough estimate. Neilma just rolling in from the backside of this fight.
What?
We might not need Neil.
What?
Scream is able to walk
¿Habéis
around.
visto el Blink Ulti del Neiruma?
From Neil.
It was a Cataclysm, yep.
He pressed the ultimate button. There was nobody inside of it, but he did use it. How impactful is that going to be? Around this
Bueno, el ulti del Neiruma, porque el Blink...
Veronica's going to gank around the backside.
Is he?
If he chooses. He's
A ver, Inbounded.
the mist is Dardes. Nika's just going to walk it, Scream.
Tío, Scream, eres un poco torpe, ¿no? Ay, Dios, el quinto game se está avecinando.
And Nika is showing us why and where this pick can have an impact.
Alright, SOT tries to flick towards the wave and flicks into the wall. The Solar Scarabs looking shaky
Look, big
here.
circular abilities.
In game 4,
not
man.
easy to hit, man. Whether
This
it's a
is-
Cataclysm or a
This does not bode well, man. I mean, that was poorly executed by the Oni Warriors. Neilma rolls in from the lane, tries to blink, does not. Cataclysms his feet, and the Solar Scarabs were not able to fight their way back in. Scream overstays, and Nika says, "Why are
Mejor
you still here?"
final de un
And
mundial
puts
de
it
Smite,
down.
la
Now
Season
SOT
3.
cooldown. You can dive this if
Is
you
he
have
out?
your ultimate. You have that gap
Whoa.
closed.
O
blink
bueno,
out from SOT.
la de SK, cabrón.
Oh, Vote's ahead too.
Vote is ahead as well. Piercing move
Ojo.
in from Scream. Will it cost Vote his life? No, it will not. Dark Portal down.
No he visto el 2, ¿qué ha pasado?
Normally that
A
would
ver.
be worrying if anyone from the Oni Warriors were on this side of the map. Neil is going to roll on in the backside. Does not have Cataclysm to throw down just yet, so the ground is safe for the time being. The Oni Warriors off to a great start in Game 4, Myth.
Is he
Continuing to
dead?
capitalize. Inbound, makes no
What?
mistake. Dardes misses his apple. Nif is having a conniption over here. As Dardes still gets pulled back in, but so does Inbound as Nika underneath the Tier 1 tower has his ult. And if that's me, my tiny brain is saying, go Dave, go. We're ulting Inbound under the tower, but Nika thinks twice. And everyone on the map will live.
Go ahead, man. Just a lot of mechanics going on right now. Dardes point blank.
Me quedo calvo, tío. Este tampoco, este también me quiere hacer ver un quinto game. El hijo puta.
Able to secure himself that kill, but at the end of the day, the Oni Warriors maintain a 1,000 gold lead at the 7.5-minute mark, and they can keep pushing it forward because Nika, 2 levels up, is Mulan, and Blue Buff has spawned.
And Blue Buff will go down. It's going to require a steal.
Me sorprende que el Neiruma no haya muerto ahí.
Blue Buff invaded. This one's good again.
Quillo, el Nika de... me está tocando los cojones.
The silver lining is that you're three-way splitting it if you're the Oni Warrior, so it's more about denying the golden XP from Sot than giving large chunks of it over to Nika. But even still, level 8 on this Mulan, what I imagine is some good gold in that back pocket, can start to hit some power spikes. At what point, though, Myth, do you say, all right, we've piled on Sot enough, it's time to put this level lead elsewhere on the map and maybe get some rotations going?
Why stop?
It's
Blink in from Neilma, Cataclysm, this one hits. Dardes had held on to his ultimate, that might have been enough if it went in. And so Baronic will take the Cataclysm, holds his beads, did not have ult. So no kill to be had here in the mid lane. Apple again, but Dardes goes wide. This one will cost him his life. Oh no.
Se está riendo hasta el Mifflin.
Well, okay. It's been a long set here today. Cubo, Fred, and Neilma
Long
still
set.
sticking around. See if maybe they could turn this engagement inbound
It's
low.
been
as
a
is
long
Baronic.
set.
But it is an engagement.
Y yo, Miguel, ¿la he escuchado?
On a kneel here. Nice
Hey,
pull.
right.
Whoa!
Cubo, Fred right to the doorstep.
You're done.
Vale, bien.
Scream will connect with the ult on the Cubo Fred. shards of the fire. What is it?
Shards of fire?
What do we call this? Shards of ice.
Yeah, that's Ymir. Fire shards.
Fire shards. There we go.
is.
Lots of shards in this game. Baronic sends the ult out just to see where the Oni Warriors are. Fire shards.
Let's
There we
go! Hindu, I got it, if you're listening.
Was there even a moment of doubt before? we got
Sí,
that?
la verdad. ¿Dónde está el Hinduman?
Alright, now I gotta analyze
Whoa,
it.
close.
Ay,
Stewart
Stuart,
dashes
tío.
in with his ult. Dark Portal used to secure the purple buff, and that won't come through. And so what was a good start to this game by the Oni Warriors, and Nika is kind of the undertone of that.
El Inbone es bien hipeado. Claro, cabrón. Yo confío en él.
Luckily, though, for the Oni Warriors, Nika
Yo confío en
is
él.
still massive, still has a 2-level lead, still sitting on a lot of gold, and
Yeah, a
still
lot of gold.
accosting this blue buff. 2,500 in hand, and trying to push it a little bit further. Can he do it on his own? Survey says yes. Blue buff invade successful, and Nika walks away like a bandit in the night. The Solar Scarabs find their footing in taking engagement.
Bandit in the
Nika is
night.
great for them. Maybe
Se dice thief,
Dardes
¿no, Mifflin?
with 3 golden apples back to back, but success where it lies. Solar Scarabs still able to fight back here, and
One
the
has
gold,
gotta hit.
yeah, the gold's even now.
Desde nunca, Wagerman Boy. Siempre ha sido
That's
Scream.
not happened often at 10 minutes, right? That has not frequently been the case. Feels like
Aunque Inbound poco a poco me está sorprendiendo para bien,
here in this game.
Sobre todo el Hércules de Inbound, ¿Os acordáis cuando lo piqueó la última vez? Cuidado, Cuidado, contra los Levis. Me acuerdo porque el Zapas no paraba de comerse todo, tío.
We'll give him a break. Unless it happens again, then
all bets are off.
yeah, all bets are off. Strife down. I think the one didn't connect to that.
What's wrong with you?
What do you mean?
Leave him alone. We're looking at golden
Well,
apples.
it's Dyke's fault. He's on Dardes while this.
Yeah, Doug. Get off of Dardes before making fun of him. This is game 4. Let's focus up.
This is my fault. This is my fault entirely. There we go.
Okay,
Zoom in on the
dude.
man. No, he's doing just fine. Dardes is doing just
El
fine.
Dol se me hace un montón de gracia,
He's
tío.
gotten an assist. We have the unfortunate microscope of just catching. Look, he's probably hit tons that we just haven't seen, right?
Not true.
Yo estoy esperando el Hércules de Inbound por mi cachondo. ¿Ves? A mí también me estaba poniendo bastante duro, la verdad. Ojito Fripiro.
Oh yeah, Unruly Magic. Yeah, he's
Yeah,
slamming
really
those.
magic. You know, when the Soul Gem
Vaya
comes
por
online,
Dios.
that's when that burst damage is going to connect, and Darda is going to prove us all wrong. Did tons of damage in game number 3 on this pick. The ones all connecting onto the Pyromancer, and the Oni Warriors will get the first neutral objective of the game. Gold Fury up on the left side, but there is no answer on that by the Solar Scarabs. And so a nice downswing in gold, and that's a good thing for the Oni Warriors on the graph. Just shy of 1,000 gold ahead. 3 levels ahead is Nika. And hey, there's a blue buff spawning. Let's send Nika this way. And it looks like the answer from the Solar Scarab Smith is just, let's do nothing over here. I don't know if there's an answer for Nika with how far ahead he is in this lane. Unless Baronic has some damage here, but Cubo Fred reads out the rotation, ult down, and damage is aplenty up in the air. Goes Baronic down, he crashes.
Vale,
Knockup is
bien,
there
bien,
from
bien. Está
Newmont.
vivo, está vivo.
Not used, Blink was reset. And so Baronic will live on, and the rotation's read out by those fire shards. Keep the Solar Scarab safe.
Inbound does not connect the heal onto Baronic, so he cannot stick around in that engagement, even though Inbound hits a nice pull to try and set up for the fight there. Oni Warriors sticking around, trying to find something in the jungle. Any individual pick could open up the door for the Gold Fury, which could be the largest separator we've seen so far this game. But we did see a nice ultimate from Cubo Fred onto Baronic to isolate him in the engagement, but that means that Cubo Fred can't go to Soul Lane, can't help out Nika up against SOT. And I think keeping SOT down, to answer your question from earlier, is just a good strategy, man. If this
It's not going to be a
Cthulhu,
bad thing, right?
yeah, if he's 3 levels down for the entire of the game, why not push him down 4 or 5 levels, open up the door for Nika to rotate out massive, and once SOT does get there, even if he descends into madness at level 10,
¿Por qué tan callado?
what Oni Warriors have elsewhere?
Estoy admirando el gameplay del Solar Scarabs.
SOT is 1 level up on Neoma.
Y mis apuestas.
Doesn't feel great.
No, it feels bad.
That's the enemy support.
That's right.
You want to be a little bit further ahead
¡Ojo!
than that. Neoma, the man even in levels or 1 level down from SOT, gets pulled back into a double cataclysm apple.
There it is.
Yeah, baby, this one's good from Dardes up into the sky. Goes Baronic, Fire Shard squeezes out the damage, but Scream has been left alone and Boat capitalizes.
Madre mía.
And an ultimate down from Cubo.
¿Qué pasa,
Fred
Shakel?
slows down Inbound. And it looks like the one pick is all the Oni Warriors want.
SOT started his rotation over towards this side of the map, but at level 11, cannot get much accomplished on his own. Cthulhu is a god that definitely needs some of those levels just to get his abilities, the base damage, available to him, especially considering he's gone for a full physical defense stack in the build.
¿Qué le pasó a Ataraxia? Pues como los demás que se retiran, se retiró.
He's on the left side of the map, which means the
Es que... ¡Ay, no, por favor! No, Inbound, no, no te mueras.
Very quick checklist on Gold Fury being started. Nika being here is maybe the one and only box that needs to be
Gracias.
checked. And that's all the Solar Scarabs need to check off to vacate the area.
Me va a hacer ver un Game 5, tío. Me cago en...
So that'll build up a decent little gold lead here. 2,000 or so for the Oni Warriors on the back end of some neutrals. Yoma has Blink, does not have ultimate. And so Vote will be without an engage here.
No puedo jugar en Smite desde la Switch, sí puedo. La build de Nika está bien. Se está haciendo ahora con personajes agresivos.
And it is Executioner for both as SOT tries to invade
got a
the
blue.
blue.
He got a blue.
Does drop it.
His own blue.
Oh, no,
to
Nika-
be clear,
no,
a
Nika-
moment
yeah, Nika got
ago,
it.
while Nika was gone, he got his own blue.
Oh, nice.
Not this one.
Yeah,
Nika-
no, that one with the Nika.
Yeah, it took Nika rotating out of lane for
¿Qué pasa,
for
JP?
to get his first blue in a real long time. And farming
¿Qué pasa,
should be the name of
Nuke
the game
Master?
because if it was a 2 to 3 level lead, still is. But now it's a 1 to 2 level lead for Nika, not quite the 2 to 3.
Mejorando a ver el Twitter de Titantina. No sé quién es, pero es algo en relación a mí.
But the bigger picture, the zoomed out picture of that is that it took Nika rotating out, grabbing a Gold Fury for your team, and gives the Oni Warriors a bit more of a lead here in this one. Top net worth, Myth, goes to both of these hunters. No surprise when they've been hanging out, farming things up. The net worth charts speak volumes. So it's one thing you got this level lead rather in solo lane. You look at 7,500 gold for SOT. Just shy of 2,000 gold up is Nika.
Jeez.
So anywhere this Mulan goes,
He's the whole lead.
right. That's the elite. To contextualize the 2,000,
¿Qué tengo que mirar exactamente?
98% of
Keropi?
on Nika to do some quick math.
That is tough going for SOT, really. I mean, he's likely out of this game for another 4 or so levels. Once he ticks over to 17, 18, maybe gets involved, I'm sure Nika will be long 20 by that
Sección multimedia.
From this Mulan,
Paso.
incredibly aggressive.
¿Es algo en
Sunder
Smite?
pickup, a relic that I had almost forgotten existed in Smite, will shred away some of that defense.
Que
What
está en
he
Egipto.
picked up is a nice pull from inbound, but he's alone.
It was a nice pull in the sense that it hit Dardez. Wasn't great in the sense that there was nobody from the Scarabs wanting to capitalize.
¿Cuándo continúas el
Dardez
platino?
held on to both of his actions.
Cuando sea el lunes.
Sends down the fire shard, so
¿Qué pasa,
Sona's
Scout?
heal now missing.
Yo, Farid.
The ultimate comes back up and totally leaving this tier 1 tower in mid are the Solar Scarabs. Nika will stick around, deal the last bit of damage to it. And Miff, he is not taking a lot of damage. It's going to take a lot to kill off this Mulan. It takes a few rotations of abilities to chip away just a little bit of health.
Looks like Stream
Porque ella no me quiere, pues no lo entiendo porque está suscrito.
do some significant output towards Nika, but that just because Nika doesn't take damage doesn't mean he doesn't deal it. So once he does close gap onto Baronic, Stewart, anybody in the back line of the Solar Scarabs, we'll be able to shut them down relatively quickly. Pyromancer has finally respawned, and the Oni Warriors probably going to be headed towards it pretty shortly. Nika still significantly in the lead, but close.
¿Qué es lo que le hicieron a Bastet? Pon Bastet rework. Para mí está mejor ahora.
Except maybe to go to mid one time to take away a wave while Baronic was fighting for his life at Gold Fury, and that has caught this Cthulhu up a fair deal. Gold though, not so much. Experience, maybe a little bit more important at this point. Bulwark of Hope will be the selection.
Porque ella me sigue queriendo si me acabó la suscripción. No te sigue queriendo, hermano. Te está poniendo los cuernos y tú te la estás comiendo doblada. A no ser que te suscribas, Pablito. Yo creo que Scream me va a carrilar una teamfight en el Fire y no me voy a tener que comer un quinto game. La madre que parió al Stuart, tío.
That's a big play from Stewart. Uses both of his actives and his ultimate.
Ya se viene el Prime y adivina para quién va. Espero que para Warchi. No, para mí, para mí.
So Stewart luckily able to stay alive. As Heimdall gets to continue.
Para mí que me quedo sin comer.
Closer to that late game point.
Dave, when I say no other hunter survives that, believe me, Beads plus Aegis plus Bifrost is just really, really good there. Neomod trades out his Blink and ultimate to try and close that gap, and potentially even the Sunder as well. I didn't see if he used it in that engagement. Leading up now to the Oni Warriors establishing decent pressure on the left-hand side of the map. Stewart, no relics or ultimate available, and Oni Fury spawning in just under 15 seconds. Means that the Oni Warriors should likely be able to leverage that pretty easily on this left-hand side, especially if Nika has already made the rotation.
Si Neyruma queda campeón del mundo, será mejor support de la historia. A ver, que haya ganado 3 mundiales no significa que sea el mejor support de la historia. Segundo, va a perder, o sea, con ese roster no gana. Oye, coña. Ojo.
For Nika and Cubo Fred gets read out pretty quickly. Nika uses his ultimate defensively. Good fire charge, chips some damage down from Baronic. Disengaged from the Oni Warriors for the time being as SOT and Inbound waltz forward into the ranks of the Oni Warriors. This Oni Fury is going to get pulled. Nika doesn't have his ult, but Baronic doesn't have his.
Cuidado, esa me gusta.
Rotate these relics effectively. If there's an impending dive from the Oni Warriors that hits its mark.
El Stuart sin relics, me encanta, vamos.
But it's SOT in first, descend into madness.
Ojo, Darde va a morir for sure. Ojito, Neyruma está medio muerto. Oye, ¿en serio?
Nika on the other side of this fight is going to separate it right on out, and the Solar Scarabs running to the hills. This Mulan is a problem. Beads used by Baronic, and that'll keep him out of the stun for just a little bit longer.
Me cago en todo, tío.
Running down the back line, and the Oni Warriors come up big.
Si el Scream no se muere con los rebotes del Cubo Fred, mata al Dardez. No, al Dardez no. ¿Quién era el que estaba? Yo no sé, ya paso, tío, de pensar.
We were microseconds. No, we're not there yet. You're behaving like it is.
I'm saying this is real big cup of coffee that's driving me through, and I'm gonna have a whole nother one if we end up going on to game 5.
Don't do that.
Massive.
Al Neyruma y al Fred for sure.
Dash on. It looks like reflect damage on the Caltrops. Killed Scream.
That is.
Y han matado al
Here's the thing, though.
Troll.
If Scream gets that ultimate off, I'm pretty sure that's a double kill for Scream immediately. He definitely finishes off Neoma, and he might have been able to take out Dardez as well. So that reflect damage kill from Cubo Fred by walking on the column with his third ability activated saves that engagement for the Oni Warriors, now netting them 5,000 gold in the lead. Pyromancer spawning very shortly, and a great way to push that lead even further. But the longer the game goes, the less it means.
Se te ve la tula.
Maybe leverage it while you got
No, por
it.
favor.
Fire Giant.
Y yo, un robo, por favor. Por favor, se están apresurando. Robádsela, tío. Por favor. No va a haber robo ni de coña, ¿no? Cancela la puta ulti ya.
And they've got nothing in return.
SOT does hover around here, but without the ultimate, not very valuable is this Cthulhu, and yeah, Stripe does a lot of damage.
I think Darnus is starting to hit his stride here, Myth. Missed a few abilities earlier in the game. And the apple will connect once again. Unfortunately, SOT just too far away to move back in. Fire Giant is at half HP inbound.
A ver.
The big damage. The stun from Nika walks around the corner. The body blocks are there, but is it enough? Inbound walks into range, and the Oni Warriors take down the first Fire Giant of the game. Grab a kill on the Inbound as well. And all 5
Bueno, que ganen rápido por lo menos.
Fire Giant. And the mid lane is where their eyes will go. Maybe on the left. Plenty of towers left to take.
7,000 gold. Fire Giant on 5, and 5 towers still remaining for the Oni Warriors to strip away. 30 seconds left on the Sylvanas respawn. I think the Oni Warriors might be able to go for a Phoenix Siege here because
se lo roba el Boronic. Sí, sí.
But why leave it up to risk when you're 1 game away?
Casi no.
Down in the group stages. So the Oni Warriors.
Defensa espectacular y 15 minutos de partida. Hombre, espero que por lo menos les tire un Fénix.
To leave it up to risk, and Pyromancer seems like an easy call to take, and it will go down. The Oni Warriors.
Al parecer, el Hades sí era la clave.
They are on the back foot. There is no mistake about it. Sure, Baronic has great self-heal, but he hasn't been the target. SOT's been the target. Scream's been the target at times. Inbound has been as well. The Oni Warriors, they are not concerned with the back line of the Solar Scarabs when they could so easily shut down the front line.
Visualizo el tweet de Imponen, merecíamos ganar. ¿Tú crees?
Changed around the storyline from games 1 and 2 because
Que este sistema del Solar Troll estar por debajo por culpa de Boronic, que se ha muerto en medio al principio, y Nika se ha llevado la kill y pues ha pasado lo que ha pasado. ¿Este sigil es el que explota? Dime que no, por favor. Vale, esto me gusta. Esto me gusta, esto me gusta, esto me gusta. Que ganen rápido, que ganen rápido.
Oh no. It's 3 in mid, and Cubo Fred's close gap already inbound, burning quick. Heavenly Sprint buys him some time, but the Golden Apple will chunk.
And it will not counter out the CC, but it will send inbound running towards base. SOT doing the same. Nika, uh-oh, the man mountain himself, walking back to the mid lane. What does this Mulan want to do? Wants to siege this Phoenix, that's the answer. Stun and no good. And the Oni Warriors will walk towards the front line of the Solar Scarabs and walk out with the Phoenix.
Can you tell?
Vale,
the Oni Warriors
tier 1, tier 2 y Gold, maybe, es buena. Bueno, ya viendo que los Solar Scarabs van a perder, prefiero que los Oni Warriors ganen rápido, ¿sabes? En plan, así como dato. Pero es que si los Solar Scarabs... A ver, en verdad, los Scarabs pueden darle la vuelta a la partida si consiguen aguantar la partida y les roban el Fire o hacen una buena teamfight en Fire. A ver qué es lo que... ¿Cuál es el com del tiempo? ¿Cómo? ¿A qué te refieres, Saúl?
And all of it, right? And the solo, and the duo, and the jungle, and all of it. And the Primal Fury. And so the Fire Giant just a bit from falling off here of the Oni Warriors, and what an effective Fire Giant siege that was. You got like 4 towers and a mid lane Phoenix.
Ah, el comando. Llevo 6 horas y 15 minutos. Otro día más. Y mañana seguro que también. Porque me estoy viendo venir High Dragon vs Leviatanes 3-2.
But Nika, despite that level gap closing, remember right around that Fury fight, we set the stage. We said, well, look, SOT is back closer as far as levels go. XP, that was the case. Gold, that was never really the case. Nika was still pretty far ahead in the build department. And this Mulan has showed no signs of slowing down. 6 out of 7 participated kills for Nika. And I think the storyline's pretty clear here in Game 4 at who's been controlling things for the Warriors.
Oh boy, Doug, check out Nika's starter item, the Sigil picked up, matched up with the Pridwin. This guy's kind of chunking right now. Infused Sigil, if you guys don't know how that one works, it explodes around you every single time, dealing 500 physical damage. Does get mitigated by defense, but not only is it the Infused Sigil doing explosion damage, you got a Pridwin with it as well.
And there's not a lot of cooldown on that. Like, just as you're eating abilities, every 4 you're exploding for 500 damage.
I don't think it's explicitly stated in the relic, but or not the relic, the starter item, but I do not believe it has a passive cooldown. No, it's just gonna keep happening.
Right. The only like limiter on the stack.
Quien gana el partido de antes es Scarabs.
No channels.
Right.
O sea, Scarabs, High Dragon y yo, perdón.
But look, that's got to shrug a lot of weight off of Nika, right? Where now you kind of want to get hit by abilities. You can ult in, you can get that Pridwin shield.
It's going to be happening where he stands, no matter what.
Right, no matter what. Because you got to use abilities to peel out for yourself, unless you're just going to let Nika walk at you. And you're not going to want to do that. And so we get an early look at the sigil changes here in game number 4. And we are building it up. Please God, look good, because we're excited about it. The Oni Warriors excited about their chances at pushing us on to a game 5.
Dave, I've hedged my bets on bringing up an item on the Oni Warriors builds because they're 11,000 gold in the lead. It's gonna look good.
This is a glimpse behind the curtain. Myth only takes bets he knows he's gonna win.
That just can't be true with my history. It just cannot. Oni Warriors starting up the Fire Giant. Slight grouping from the Solar Scarabs on the right-hand side, but no world where they can step up to the pit itself. So the Warriors, yet again, net Fire Giant for 5 members. Only 2 Phoenixes standing between them and the exposed Titan of the Solar Scarabs. Defense potential for the Scarabs is there. Descent of Madness still a phenomenal tool. Inbound can engage these fights well. as well. But it's all about the
Sí, sí he jugado, Eric.
Stewart,
Bastante malardo, la verdad.
Baronic, top of the charts, but that's nuance. We're that's just fire shards, and generally after they've already lost a team fight. And Stewart sitting third lowest right now, only above the support.
¿Cuándo juega Leviatanes? Mañana.
Maybe a little bit longer. Long enough.
Oh, it's still there.
Still there. Nika.
Samula, no me digas nada, por favor, que no lo he visto. Cállate, 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 cállate. Por favor,
I
cállate.
imagine Nika's gonna stick around here. You almost have to send two to deal with Nika here. Because it feels like anyone alone with Nika is gonna be suffering not a great fate. You go Fred hovering in mid as well. And so you got both carries plus support on right. Solo and jungle. Hovering over on the mid. Cubo Fred blinks in, finds Scream with his ultimate. Nika
Ojo.
to the side, piercing Moonlight out. Mid lane Phoenix goes down. But Cubo
Vale, bien, bien, que pierdan rápido, que pierdan rápido.
Rampage, and that has been the story of this game. There will be a kill traded out, a rare one for the Solar Scarabs here.
No, no, muérete, muérete ya, Solar Troll. Muérete, por favor.
The apple is on him.
Yo, Xavi, muchas gracias, hermano, por esos 10 meses. No, no, o sea, no he visto nada, no he visto nada. Mira, no me he metido ni en Instagram, ni en Twitter. No me he metido en ningún sitio para mirar nada. Paso, paso, paso.
Nika can't say the same of him. Just walks into the Phoenix and walks out immediately through the fire and not burned. The Oni Warriors, they're in the burn.
Nika is taking nearly no damage. That's a big strike from Dartes. Game 5 on the other end of this engagement. If it goes the Oni Warriors' way, the Phoenix will crumble. So now the cooldown begins. The timers on the deaths of the Solar Scarabs relatively low. The same for the Oni Warriors. Still have time. Minute, 2 minutes to group up with the last 3 Fire Giant buffs and look at this left Phoenix once your teammates respawn.
Another different look at a starter item. Sentinel's Boon for inbound on the Sylvanas. Interesting. Generally it's the wings picked up, but this time around decides to go a little bit differently with it. Every time you pick up an assist, you're getting bonus gold and 4% of HP and mana. You're not getting a whole ton of kills on the side of the Solar Scarabs.
Como me ves luego, lo tengo grabado. Se viene backing a Solar. Hombre, la verdad que no les haría nada mal librarse de Boronic. Es que no sé, no sirve para nada, creo. La verdad que no me convence mucho. Qué buena ulti de Neyruma, hermano. ¡Pum! Primer muerto. ¡Pum! Segundo muerto. Venga, chaseito aquí guapo. Vale, bien, 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 bien. Venga, pasando rápido, pasando rápido. ¡Oh, Hendrix! ¿Qué ha pasado? ¿Qué ha pasado, Hendrix?
8-0-4 for Nika and the Oni Warriors walking lackadaisically into the Titan room. What can you do, inbound?
Nothing. He immediately dies. T aside for the Warriors. Game 5 for us. And another cup of coffee for me from Myth to deal with.
You do not need it. You are shaking right now, bud. Just, what do you mean? Put your hands
Themselves a much needed win. Again, this is
Tengo hambre, por favor. Que se acabe rápido.
In terms of group implications, you have to look at the other teams they're going to be matched up against. The Titans and the Bolts are the other 2 teams in this group. Not an easy set to be able to take over either of those teams. And so if you think about them potentially going 0-2 versus them, this is the game that would separate you between 3rd and 4th.
No es obligatorio poner la cama en la SPL. A mí me obligaban.
So a lot of implications of that. We'll see what happens here. The Scarabs ban out the Morgan. Now the Izanami joins that. It is Hades Olarun once again there for the Warriors, keeping things pretty much on track.
So it's I suppose this means they aren't banning Geb. Yeah, you banned Discordia here. Okay, so this is the Scarab saying, we would have abused this Geb earlier if it weren't for
pero Leviatanes en estudio, contra Jade Dragons, esa me gusta.
Banning Geb, they ban
Y los Balls versus
the Warriors are going to take the Geb
contra quien jugaran.
and they can punish it then. Maybe they're thinking about taking it themselves.
Scarabs puede ser en estudio, aunque si es contra los Oni Warriors no es en estudio. ¿Qué celular tienes? Una mierda tengo. Un Samsung. No sé si es el S... no sé. Ni puta idea, la verdad.
if the Scarabs don't take it for themselves.
Realmente no me importa mucho.
It was the Odin ban to finalize the top 3 for the Warriors. Very similar, actually exact same as what they had banned. It's going to be the RDO left open and locked in for the Scarabs. Maybe anticipating that the Warriors won't lock in something like the Sylvanas, which has been very kind to Bobby.
Well, you just still get Geb or Sylvanas this way, or Terra. All 3 of those are open. Yamoja also open. So
a lot of good Guardians still.
A lot of good Guardians on the table. So they take a Guardian, but it's the solo lane Guardian of that group. They decide to go with that option, trying to get solo Retrol something a little bit more present in the lane than the Cthulhu. And the Warriors continue to prioritize Terra over the Geb, really valuing that team fight presence that Terra brings, and they sustain more so than the shielding and the damage from the Cataclysm.
Now, do you think this time, because you had mentioned with the Izanami ban, it feels like the Scarabs have a mentality of Geb was a problem, but because of the early lane phase that we weren't able to shut him down.
Hermano, es que me parece surrealista que le sigan baneando a Hades, tío.
You know what? We don't know
Es que me quedo calvo, tío.
Yeah, well, in game, it was in game 4, I believe, or game 3, that Geb wasn't either picked nor banned.
Yeah.
And the Warriors took Terra over Geb. So I think that they just value Terra over Geb. I think they just think for whatever they're doing, what their team comp has got going on, they prioritize the Terra first. So, you know, that's up to them and how they're going to play it. That is an awfully early Kali pick for Scream, but it did get banned last game, so they will take it and make sure that he has at least the option to go to it later.
RDO Kali feels like it should be a very devastating late game comp.
Pasa Demetrial. Y yo hoy estoy más cansado que ayer, como que las partidas han sido más soporíferas, la verdad.
Love it.
Now
Love
the Serket
it.
comes through. How do you like? I mean, you
Serket
love it,
versus
good
Kali.
anti-heal
Love it.
a lot.
This is one of the only ways to shut down Kali, is that she goes into destruction, we can't kill her. This is super annoying. She can kill her target full heal. All you've got to do, if you're Fred, your whole job this game is as soon as you hear that Kali ult, you go ult that guy. All you got to do. Because she will die. It's unless she buys Aegis, she dies. There's nothing else she can do. So, and he's not buying Aegis the vast majority of the time. That is Fred's job in these mid to late game team fights, is to not let this Kali get any sort of survivability from the ultimate. It shuts it down entirely.
Yo, Saúl. Muchísimas gracias, hermano, por esa suscripción de regalo.
But still think it's a very smart tech for him.
Bans start coming through here after that Serket pick for the Warriors. Uller and Cupid. The Cupid's the one that might seem surprising, but feels a love.
Mulan Nike
really
Ban,
shut
tío.
down that Serket, so that is a
Smart.
good ban from the Warriors.
Yep.
The Mulan makes
Sí, lo he visto, Zokibu, hermano.
ban side. They don't want to have to deal with that again alongside this Nike. So a lot of solo lane, a lot of hunters taken off the board. Heimdall's been a popular pick over there for the Scarabs, and is still available for them. Vote has opted into this Hachiman. We're still waiting for the mid laner with no Discordia. Where does Dardes go?
It's a good question. No Discordia, no Morrigan. I mean, he can go Hera. That's what we always know him for. That's certainly an option for him. I like this decision to let him see the whole draft, see what everyone is playing, and then try and make a decision from there. But Cthulhu, I think that this Kali was kind of there as, hey, don't pick Cthulhu because we'll kill you for it. You've got double Guardian still here for the Solar Scarabs. Cthulhu has not looked good this set, no matter which team is really piloting him. A little surprised as to the direction they go. And I was going to say, I'll bet you the Scarabs now, you just lock double Hunter from this position, right? Because this is how you beat them early in game 2, was you just had 3 chin-size characters.
Madre mía.
And the Cthulhu's like, sweet, I just get percent HP to death every single fight. I think I go double Hunter in this situation. You've got enough magic damage between the RDO and the Sylvanas. It's not great. I'm still going Sov into Lotus Crown if I'm Neil, but it's enough magic damage to contribute. I love this Charybdis pick if it's for Baronic. Give Stewart another Hunter, and I think that they're in a pretty good position.
Well, they're waiting for that last lock-in.
Probably
everything
high.
else feels pretty solid overall. It is, once again, though, mid laners, when you're looking at it, specifically in this matchup versus a Charybdis, if it does go mid, has been Baronic's pick so far. What matches up well into that if you're Dardes here?
There's not a lot. I mean, normally when you get Hunters in the mid lane, you get out-pressured early because their auto attacks hit really hard.
Yeah.
That actually isn't really the case with Charybdis. Her auto attacks early aren't great. and so you can actually get lane pressure from her. I think that you go something a little bit more team fight presency, because you need something to command attention away from Nika. Terra's not going to do it. I don't think Hachiman is really the character to do it. Serket certainly won't do it when it comes to team fight presence. I think you need something that can do it. Morgan Le Fay is interesting.
A saber cómo coño juega el darle la Morgana esta, tú.
Lane pressure, but I think probably can do okay up against the Charybdis. You've got a lot of abilities that make her have to use Whirlpool form. You've got some mobility punishment with the 3, the Wildfire. It punishes Sylvanas pretty well. You can build Divine Ruin early on this pick pretty well.
A ver, patógeno, no son malos, pero Artio, Cthulhu están por encima.
It's impossible for me to say whether or not it can do enough, but I think their mid 3v3 of Terra, Serket, Morgan Le Fay has the tools to be good.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of actually then executing on that, because that's been where the ball drops sometimes for the
A lot of the conversation in games 1 and 2 were around Cuvo Fred, and specifically the lack thereof of Cuvo being present. This Serket is going to be one that is interesting. We'll have to keep our eyes on, but they're remaking the lobby as of right now. Game number 5 will be coming to you soon, but before we get there, we have to do a quick break.
Pues nada, tío, me toca jugar un Tetris. Me sirve. Ay. ¿Dónde hay que pagar para ver Arturos? Y yo, pues en mi ranked sabía, tío. Pero ya ni pagando. Putos anuncios, no he puesto ni uno, cabrón. Y yo, ¿cuánto tardan en remakear el lobby, tío? ¿Qué cojones? No. Y yo me voy a cagar en todo. ¿Por qué? ¿Por qué? Y yo... Oh, pensaba que es... Oh, me cago en la puta, tío. Pues nada, tío. Bueno, ya ni más hacer, tío, el día de hoy. Ah... Qué divertido, ya lo sé, Miguel, tío. Me lo estoy comiendo con patatungas, tío. Así es la vida, hermano. Así es la vida. Cada, cuan- Cada cuántos puntos subes de nivel en el Tetris, perdón, nunca lo jugué. Yo tampoco, no, o sea, no me he fijado nunca, la verdad. Es un modo de juego random. Recuerdo que hace tiempo ponías en tus directos dos roles nivel SPL. ¿Cuál es el otro? ¿Carry? ¿Cómo? ¿Cómo? Pasajista. Hombre, tiene toda la pinta, la verdad. Ay. No sé, quizás hice alguna broma cuando estaba jugando mucho a Nura DC en Casuals con el Miguel. No sé. Ni idea. ¿Te gusta más el solitario o el solitario del Spider? ¿Cuál era la diferencia, tío? No sé, la verdad. Ni me acuerdo la diferencia. Media hora de hi-rez, también te lo digo. Gracias. Hermano, ya me están puteando el resubido, tío. Esta noche el cambio de hora, ¿qué es? ¿Una hora más o menos? Una hora menos, supongo, ¿no? Sí, ¿no? Ah. Vale, me sirve. Me sirve, me sirve. Dormimos una hora más. Dolson me cae mal, pero muchas veces me da cringe. Eh, Creo que te has equivocado en Dolson no me cae mal, pero muchas veces me da cringe. Algo así, supongo. ¿Ves? Ya se ve yo. Quillo, hi-rez, por favor. No me tengáis aquí otras putas 8 horas, tío. Que quiero cenar, loco. Es que esto es increíble. Una pizza de tranquileo, ya me la pedí ayer, hermano. Y fue un sablazo, pero mira que estaba buena, picha. La devoré, tío. Fue una devorada, madre mía. Le estaba explicando un par de cositas al Boronic. Supongo que han tenido que hacer remake 3 veces y medio. No sé, tío. La verdad. Me estoy poniendo medio nervioso. Estoy por echarme otro clash. Es broma. Oye, dejar de pedir cartas que necesito, ¿no? En plan, hola. Saca una sección como el Chocas donde come en stream y lo sube a su canal. Me siento incómodo comiendo en streaming. Me siento incómodo que la gente me vea comer. Y me siento incómodo que la gente me vea comer mientras estoy en streaming. Tú saca tus propias conclusiones, Guerra 07. Ya me imagino cómo estaba el mundial. A mí me da pena, tío. A mí me da pena porque... Bueno, es que no sé si me va a dar pena o vergüenza ajena, la verdad. Tengo hasta miedo, tío. A saber. ¿Sale unos showdowns? Nah. Uf, me echo uno. Es que ya os digo yo, tío, que justo cuando le vaya a dar la batalla va a empezar la partida. Ya verás. Toma un regalo. ¡Pum! Uy. Y yo, ¿por qué van tan rápido, carajo? El puto vergudo, tío. Uf, yo, ¿para qué coño estoy jugando al Clash Royale, tío? Ah, que me mata la mosquetera de una hostia. Cojonudo, ya me puedo rendir. Adiós. Ya está la polla, tío. Como vea otro Solar Scarabs versus Oni Warriors, no lo veo, ¿eh? Porque vaya puto flamos de Vietnam, hermano. Madre mía. ¿Otro Tetris? No, gracias. Una paja aquí en directo, tío, en Xvideos. Buena idea. Gracias.
A couple of remakes and things are all set for us here.
Couple of remakes, dice el hijo
Number
puta.
5. You missed something.
Mínimo
You saw Dave
7
remake.
remakes.
You didn't see Dave shotgun an espresso that he had, and we found out what's in the coffin. It turns out.
Cuando os calléis, le pongo el volumen, tío. Con todo el puto cringe que me lleváis encima, loco. Refresca, refresco.
Studio.
¿Qué
But
cojones?
The draft for the Solar Scarabs feels more similar to what we had in games 1 and 2
Well,
in games that the
me
Scarabs
sirve.
felt very in control of.
Yeah, if you could remember to 5 hours ago when this set started, this is exactly the style of draft that the Solar Scarabs were looking for. And I think Aggro brings a great point on the desk roughly 20 minutes ago, where it's a triple kin-size composition for Kali, Baronic, and
Ay, la
Stewart
puta
as well,
cam,
to be
tío.
able to utilize that. So Nika might find himself in a similar position in the late game as he did earlier on. This Cthulhu is going to struggle mightily, especially when you take into consideration what Kali is able to do against that god. This time, though, a significant change for the Oni Warriors is their jungler Cubo Fred playing that Circuit, one of the hardest counters to Kali in the game.
You know, Myth, before we get too far into this game, I do want to give myself a shout out, and I don't think it's been discussed enough. Not only did I shotgunned it, but I made the hole with my tooth.
Yeah.
And then I shotgunned it. And I think that carries a little extra oomph with it. And that's all I'm going to say on the matter. And we can now reroute ourselves in game number 5 here between the Warriors and the Scarabs. And again, it's been a minute, so let's recontextualize this. These two teams, seeding-wise at the bottom of Group B, anything can happen in this group. Any team can beat any team. But if the results hold with the seedings, if the teams that are seeded higher beat the teams that are seeded lower, these two teams technically would be fighting for that third and final spot out of Group B, but there is plenty of Smite yet to be played. Needless to say, a lot of weight stands on this matchup. Nonetheless, big pull on the vote. Double stun from Neoma on the answer, and Stewart in inbound suddenly get it turned around. Watch out, Cubo Fred is here, and in he blinks. Inbound.
Ya me suda el pito quien gane. Es más, ahora quiero que gane Oni Warriors. ¿Podéis dejar de fallar todo?
He's still alive.
By Cubo Fred.
One more auto.
On the other end, and inbound will live with 30 HP.
Man, Stewart left inbound to die there, by the way. Inbound steps back forward to try and give his boy the wisps, and Stewart rides the Bifrost out of dodge. But somehow, someway, juking inside of the wave, the tree remains standing, and then quietly on the other side of the map, it's a blue buff invade that goes right for the Solar Scarabs.
Alrighty, into game 5.
Bueno, pues que ganen los Solar Scarabs.
From the onset. And a blue buff invade will help build up some of that lead. It's something that SOT had none of in game number 4. If you need a refresher, if my break dancing brought you all the way back.
Y yo, mira que hoy he comido a las 3:30, 4, tío, para estar tranquilito hoy, hermano. ¡Pum!
That from Neil really makes this interesting. That double stun. And I can't believe it. I cannot.
Es horroroso,
believe will live. We'll see how low his health gets in this engagement. As low as 32. Maybe a little more damage on the end of it here, but 32 is as low as it gets. That is unbelievable. Just needed a little bit more.
Did you see that support mentality? He turns on a dime
13,
to help out his
it was
teammate.
lower. It was
Yeah.
lower than 32. It was 13.
No, calculated. That's all easy for inbound. That's why he locked in the Sylvanas, was that sustain in the lane, and now is going to be benefiting.
Pero qué sustain, cabrón. Si ha sido por la bot y Mifflin, tío.
Their meditation on the other side.
Yo, mapachozo.
But
Muchas gracias, hermano, por esos 15 mapaches bien sexys. Ese Prime, para mí siempre, hermano.
Inbound should not have survived.
No, should not have survived, and the gold lead shouldn't be what it is. It's 1,000 already for the Solar Scarabs. Remember back.
Twin.
Remember
Y
back
pensar que en teoría son los mejores del mundo, ¿quiénes?
1.5K
Where did 1,500 experience come from?
1.5K gold in game 2, 4 minutes in, and we're saying, what happened here?
Dude, what?
The Solar Scarabs just passively built up this lead in game 2. In 400 gold less is all the difference here in game 5 from what happened in game 2. There's a lot of Smite to be played, simply pointing out
Banearon que no sé.
in game 2, the engage from Baronic around to the corner.
Okay.
Darez avoids the stun, but there is destruction from Scream,
Madre
and there's
mía,
a
el-
first blood as well, and the Solar Scarabs will
A los
take
que están en la
the gold lead
SPL.
from game 2 off to a great start in game 5.
Solar Scarabs looking a lot like they did.
Ya,
in the
bueno,
first
bueno
two games
contra
of this
bueno.
set. Early aggression
Pueden
this
pasar
time
cosas.
around nets them not only first blood, but great macro play to put them a good lead beforehand as well. Early power spikes already hit. Baronic level 7, 1 level lead over Dardes, 1 level lead in the jungle. Scream finishes off his Crusher, and it's a Chalice the Oracle purchase for inbound. So that's passive gold generated for the rest of the game. He is no longer going to have to buy any standard wards. It's all been purchased up front with this Chalice.
That's a decent, and not even a decent, that's a good bit of economy there for inbound. You're able to go back, finish your Lotus Crown, still have enough money for that Chalice. We'd like to avoid getting down to 13 HP as often as we can in lane. Dardes losing this trade to Baronic.
No se te hace que uno se acostumbre muy rápido a los cambios del Smite, por ejemplo, a los del mapa o los reworks. ¿Y eso es malo?
Just a moment ago. We're getting back to this Charybdis pick, Myth, a pick that has looked great for Baronic in the 2 wins of this set for the Solar Scarabs. That is a hefty amount of damage trade out onto Dardes that I don't think this Morgan Le Fay expected.
Yeah, so there was a question at the beginning of the week during Waiting Room on whether or not we thought Charybdis was going to be good, and Aggro said definitively he thinks it's going to be a high priority god. We haven't seen that priority order for all the teams in the SPL, but whether or not she's good, that answer, or that question rather, has been answered by multiple teams now. This god has continued to impress. The poke potential, the defense shred, the utility in the kit, the CC immunity, as well as movement speed from the ultimate, all adds up to a very impactful god. And Baronic leveraging a massive lead already.
I want to see which direction Scream is going to go with his build here. Inbound takes some poke here in the mid lane. Scream here by the red buff as well. Looks like red's going to get dropped down just fine by the Oni Warriors. But I remember, I'm thinking back to the Kali game Scream played earlier, and I think, if I'm remembering correctly, he delayed the completion of his Odibo. Vote well timed on his beats there. Inbound pull, no. Would have been a
3-0, Calcio.
Does have the mounted archery.
Siento que en eso trabaja Pilos de hi-rez porque uno llega a olvidar cosas como que antes no había Dragur en la dúo y ahorita uno está súper acostumbrado a verlo ahí. Bueno. Si cambiasen que ahora en vez de haber 2 tier 2 hay 4. Pues igual sí que se notaría, pero cambiar eso. Y bueno, yo la verdad que sí, estoy súper acostumbrado.
Great CC chain!
¿Qué está haciendo el cubo?
I think Inbound may have choked that kill. The ultimate, perfect. Keeps the cripple field online so that SOT is able to reclose the gap on a Cubo Fred and stop the dash and leap. But the pull puts Cubo Fred in a position where he can dash and leap.
It's another pull from Inbound, but this time it's Neomod dropping the ult in the mid lane. Nika is here as well. There's a lot of damage onto Baronic and Inbound. One knockup is there, but Baronic has used the beads. And so Nika, with the descent into madness, strips away the beads from Baronic.
¿Qué pasa aquí, Tox? Sí, sí que la ha salvado.
Luckily able to walk on away. Shell gets used there. Look at this mid lane tier 1 tower.
It's
or what's left of it. This is 8 minutes into the game, and all of this pressure has found its
Vamos, Scarabs. ¿No podéis haber hecho esto hace 2 horas? Quizás sí.
rest of the Solar Scarabs around mid.
And look at the gold lead and how quickly that's amassed as well. We're at 4,000.
What happened?
By the way, 8 minutes into this game. Experience is at 5,000.
Oye, porque le sacan 5K. Bueno, 4.
Doesn't that look eerily similar
¿Qué
to the gold
cojones?
graph of game 2?
I'm
When I
getting
mentioned that
deja vu.
when there's no massive spike one way or another, it's just a steady incline for the Solar Scarabs. You know what that looks like? Is like Benevolence meta when one team had all 5 and there's just a steady one steady gold increase for them. And this is not going to feel great for Vote. He does not have beads for 28 seconds. And luckily pathing away quick enough. Actually, I don't even know if there's a ward back there. There was one at that jungle entrance, but good map awareness for Vote to back away before it was necessary to use that ultimate. Nika's receiving a lot of pressure from SOT here, Myth. And if you're beckoning back to the beginning of this set, this is exactly where the Solar Scarabs have wanted the Oni Warriors from minute 1.
2-level lead for Baronic, and Dardes now equal level with Inbound, the support of the Solar Scarabs. And it seems like Scream has figured out what he wants to do this game, and it's sit inside the enemy jungle. He's been stripping back camps, purple buffs, scorpions, whatever he can to make sure that the farm is slowed down by the Oni Warriors. This is just great macro play. Every single time
La
Scream
clave
takes
era la
one of
Chari.
the Warriors buffs, it's somebody
No
else
sé,
in the
tío.
Scarabs taking one of Screams. And it's just
Yo solo sé
putting a
que
farm throughout the
tengo hambre.
entirety of the map. The only Warriors
Full
by
ácido,
no
vuelo
means
por
out
Oni,
of
¿qué?
it
Cuidado.
as of now, but they do certainly have a steep hill to climb. Some significant power spikes are approaching. It's a Ikavale start for Vote, so he's got some 1v1 potential up against Stewart, stripping away some of that power, the attack speed. Good
El
as
World
well.
Competitor carry de
Charge
Wars,
Bow pickup for Scream
no.
means that he's now dealing AoE damage
Dios.
to these engagements and quickly as well.
A lot of damage onto Cubo. Not even time to cast that one. As SOT and Scream combine for a kill, and this is a horrible start for the Oni Warriors and Cubo Fred just not having the ability to play aggressively, impact the map, and that's something we've seen the Oni Warriors do in games 3 and 4. I will give myself another shout out here.
Fal se está haciendo mucho, sí.
The charged bow pickup, and then skipping it and going to the Wind Demon. I shouted it out earlier, and I'm gonna stick with it. Something about too much caffeine just unlocks my brain, Myth, and maybe I just need to stick to that. My body probably won't thank me, but my cast might. Solar Scarabs around the Pyromancer. It's a neutral objective for free. Gold Fury is up, but the Solar Scarabs nor the Oni Warriors will group up around this one. I don't know, man. Look, we're only 10 minutes, 11 minutes into this game, and already it's a worrying trend if you're the Warriors or one of their fans. This would be good, a kill onto Inbound, but look at the sustain.
He's living.
On the other end, he lives, and Baronic in turn turns damage around onto Dardes. Didn't even have to use his ultimate. Hugo Fred is going to get caught out here by SOT.
No.
And Scream, this happened just a moment ago. You're relying on Nika's peel, but there's just not enough. Scream. Well, charged bow is
Me sabe mal por el Fred, pero menuda mierda de partida está teniendo, la verdad.
Still low, still impacting things, and it looks like he's going to walk away as well. Myth, this is big shades of game number 2. At least something brought back here, and it's the first kill of the game for the Oni Warriors.
Inbound does trade out his life, but maybe Neoma going to do the exact
Quillo, la Cali.
there. Stun connects.
Oh, that's big from Baronic to stun.
La Cali con la Artio están pelando, hermano. Qué pena que no le haya cortado el dash, el Solar Troll.
Don't agree with Scream and don't agree with SOT. If you told me the solo lane tower was going to be the first one to go
Estaban
down
pelando, hermano.
this way for the last 5 minutes, I would have laughed, but here we are. But it is pretty indicative of the way all this pressure has gone. Rewind the clock to game 2, and that's what you've got here in game 5.
So we're approaching 6,000 gold now, 5,500, 6,000 experience for the Solar Scarabs. At the 12-minute mark, this is...
Ya, la verdad es que no sé cómo están jugando tan clean los Scarabs.
You gotta hope for some
Están
mistakes
aprovechando
now.
todos los fallos de los demás, le sacan
There are ways
5
to
casi
fight
medio.
back in, but it just feels like when SOT
Van a ir a
and
full
Scream
goal
are
ahora.
Baronic's making
Luego pueden
rotations
hacer una
as
tier
he
1
has
maybe.
been. How are you going to be able to take these engagements?
De medio digo.
I'm also surprised if you can remember all the way back to
Farmear
the
un
initial
poco,
game,
early
we
fire
thought
quizás.
might fall
Están
down
súper por
a bit
encima.
to the combined efforts of Dardes and Neoma.
Yeah.
Neoma just held on to Earthen Fury. Had he used it at any point, I'm pretty sure Inbound just dies. But delay, trepidation, hesitation, if you would, from the Oni Warriors, cost them a kill earlier. Could have turned things around before they got over to the blue buff.
Here's the thing, Myth. There are a lot of player passives in the SPL. Vote will use mounted archery to get away from this one. Neoma has one of the more dramatic player passives. Loves going down in sets, turning things around. And in games like this, plays on teams that often turn things around, but with no pressure
Good
on
lord.
the neutral objectives. He's going to need one hell of a passive to get the Oni Warriors back into this game 6.5.
Los cabrones no podían haber jugado así en la tercera partida, ¿sabes?
It's just a continued trend. And here's what's worrying, Myth, is that there hasn't been any pushback around these neutral objectives. Pyro looked at, Gold Fury looked at, and just let go by the wayside. And it's terrifying. Tier 1 tower in both mid and right
7 now.
looked at. Tier 1 tower on left looked at.
It's at 8,000.
The Oni Warriors have, whether by the game state or by their own decision making, not had an opportunity to find any footing here in this game. I think he might be dead here.
Huele mal, ¿no, Nika? Bueno.
Into madness. Scream is low on the
Ay,
back.
Dios.
For the Kali, Hugo Fred is found him, but Hugo Fred is left alone. My friend, what are you doing inbound from range? We'll finish off that kill. Stewart has got one on the vote on
¿el Stuart se solea al otro? Ah, no, que está el otro ahí, el sobre otro.
Inbound is able to chase one down here on right, and Nika might die as well. My hopes are fading for the Oni Warriors and their ability to turn this around, and my hopes are soaring.
Dios, o sea, los Oni Warriors de verdad me han hecho aguantarme otras 2 horas con un agujero en el estómago hasta las 12 de la noche para choquear la última partida de esta manera. Y yo, que alguien saque al Scream de aquí, tío. Este chaval es un puto abuso, hermano. Qué abuso de chaval, hermano.
At the 15-minute mark, what is happening?
This is disgusting. What happened in games 3 and 4? What goes on?
What? You guys could have done this the whole time?
This is unbelievable.
Literal, es que podían haber ganado así todo el rato, tío.
Deja vu.
Y yo, Stuart, para ya, por favor. Es que no para de fallar ultis, cabrón.
You're taking it to its limits if you're the Solar Scarabs.
13,000.
Ese fue Liars.
15 minutes
El Scream entró por Liars.
Let's call it a 20,000 lead.
Is 503.
That's not good. That's a late game hyper carry.
Sí, Max Inmortal.
Right now.
Yeah, Nika's not going to get a chance to play this game. He missed his point of interaction.
Talk about whiplash for poor Nika. I mean, you were doing whatever you want in the last
Should've
game we
played the
played
Mulan again.
on Mulan, and now suddenly you're Cthulhu.
Bueno, el Boronic va 1-0-3, la verdad. Punto positivo.
The Solar Scarabs team, they are playing like something special when the draft and the game plan is something they're actively impacting, and that's games 1, 2, and 5.
Dios, les han tirado 2 tier 2. Por favor, esta partida tiene que acabar en 20, o sea, en el minuto 20-24 como mucho, ¿eh?
We can't talk about Neomod passive anymore. Neomod's passive netted them the last 2 games. Where's Nika's passive? Where's Cubo Fred's? Well, Nika's passive maybe. The last one.
That's right.
So we'll give game 3 to Neomod. Game 4 goes to Nika. Cubo Fred, Dardes vote. We got to figure out what these passes are, and we're going to need to figure it out quick if you want a chance at winning this one, because this gold lead is just continuing to grow.
It's like humorous at some point, right? It's not humorous if you're the Warriors or their fans.
No, they hate this.
They hate every.
Hasta este nivel, sobre todo este set, no.
There is zero deviation from the norm here, as far as the gold lead. We have not broken it, and it's from minute.
Mira la build de Nika, tío, madre mía. ¡Ojo! Early fire, me gusta. No podían haber hecho esto en la tercera partida, ¿verdad, cabrones? Espérate que Nika lo va a robar.
Oh my god.
Ay, Dios, Boronic se me muere. Hostia, qué buen dash, hermano. Bueno, aguanta lo suficiente, supongo. 2 por 1 de momento. 3 por 1. Cubo Fred está bien y Bot está haciendo una paja. Bueno.
Maybe the best vote can do is take a tier 2 tower or some health from the tier 2 tower on left.
Well, Fire Giant only on 4 members of the Solar Scarabs 17 minutes into this game with a 13,000, make that 14,000 gold lead. So it could be worse.
Y para 100-0 ya lo sé.
Already killed a Titan here, I suppose. The Solar Scarabs. This is a 99%er, and I think that might be doing a disservice. The Oni Warriors now need to hope for miracles if they want to be able to make a comeback here. Finding 1 kill is a great start.
Espero que para mañana no esté caducada la partida, gordo. Porque yo ahora mismo me voy a ir a cenar y a morirme muerto, tío. A morirme muerto, tío. A morirme muerto bien morido. Son 26 minutos. No. Llevo 7 horas y media aquí,
What's
loco.
the best case scenario on the
7
team
horas y 10
so far?
minutos.
Is
Que
it
espero que no
maybe
se convierta en 7 horas y media.
triple kin size, level 15, by the way? I don't think that's your saving grace. Is it Neoma popping his second relic? He doesn't have that yet. He's level 11.
He's level 11.
This is long shot odds, man. Maybe it's Cubo Fred shutting down Scream through the destruction ultimate. Scream's level 20 though. So what are the odds of that
Mañana
happening?
no soy un Lucky.
Maybe it's Dardez coming up huge in this team fight.
Es que estoy reventado, cabrón. No jodas.
You know,
Que es media hora,
what
¿sabes?
doomed Myth was when I had you do the reverse
Ya,
sweep
bicho.
coming up. 'Cause
Yeah, that you casters cursed them through me.
if I'm remembering correctly, the last time you did that, the one that's on the intro video, whatever team we were reverse sweep,
didn't reverse
they
sweep.
They,
No,
they
they did
lost
not.
like the next game.
Bueno, a ver, si ganan
So the
ya del
Warriors
tirón aquí la
break
vemos.
the initial reverse sweep coming up, Curse.
La que ahí no se termina el
Take us to
odiseo.
5.
Ya, supongo que están haciendo otras
We
cosas.
might be ending this game.
¿Qué coño se está haciendo ahora?
Sub
¿Un
20
berserker?
minutes, why not? The Solar Scarabs have come to play.
Surely
SOT
not.
is zoning out 3 members of the Oni Warriors. There's an exposed Phoenix in mid and right that we can take. We have not quite reached the 20-minute mark. This Scarabs team is playing like a team possessed in 3 games with a 2-game lull sandwich somewhere in the middle. But the turnaround we've seen from games 3 and 4, you could totally understand if the momentum, the moment, kind of took the Scarabs out of this set. But they re-grounded themselves, drafted a great composition. And Myth, it looks like they're one team fight away from taking Game 5 and taking their first game in the group.
It's a mid Phoenix approaching, and the minion wave is in.
Y se
Neomod
derrumba hasta
can't
el
deal
11, tío.
damage, but it's Cubo Fred in the back.
We need a miracle, and we need it now if you're the Oni Warriors. Mid
No, 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 no.
Fred onto
It's
screen,
Fred!
and Dardez is the one who is able to pick up the kill. The mid Phoenix does go down, but the
No me
fight
toquéis
is
la
not
polla,
offside.
tío.
The Scarabs do not win the death column game. They do win the Phoenix game, though. So Scream goes down, and that was a concerted effort by the Oni Warriors to grab that kill. But I think the Scarabs are just fine here, Myth. They get left Phoenix and mid Phoenix, and they only lose their jungler in trade.
Now the Solar Scarabs only have Fire Giant on 3 of their members. Remember that Baronic lost it off of the initial taking of the neutral objective, but already stripping 2 Phoenixes sub 20 minutes into the game. Great start for the Solar Scarabs. Generally, the first Fire Giant just primes the map for the secondary to take a Phoenix.
That's right.
Not the case. We've already stripped away 66% of the birds of the Oni Warriors. Only 1 still standing, and it's the lowest value Phoenix on the map. Solar Scarabs have put themselves in such a wild position that I now refuse to do the math on the gold differential, and instead will say the Oni Warriors, they've got no horse in the race of this next Fire Giant. They can't step up out of their base. They need that unofficial.
Y yo, Miguel, límpiame a mí, tío, estas 7 horas que me has robado Smite, tío. Límpiamela, por favor, tío. Como si no hubiesen pasado nunca, loco. Dios. Pero ¿estás viendo lo clean que están jugando los Scarabs ahora? Y yo, me quedo calvo. ¿No podían haber ganado esta hace 3 horas? Hijos de puta. Los Oni Warriors lo mismo, ellos. Nadando para morir en la orilla. Me cago en vuestra prima, tío. Menos mal que tengo ahora para comer, tío. Porque si no... O sea, imaginaos que me hubiese pedido algo, loco. A las 10. Eso está más frío ya que su corazón, tío. Hey, Julio, si te hiciese un fanart, ¿a dónde te lo debería enviar? Pues mira, ni puta idea. En vez de Twitter, supongo. Como ayer, pero ayer me lo pedí a las 11:30, no jodas. Y yo que no me gusta comer en directo, tío. ¿Qué lo que? Con las peñas. ¿Qué tenéis, fetiche o qué? Tenéis una fetichada, tío, con que coma en directo espectacular, A ver, lo he pedido supuestamente a las 23:30 hoy. Vamos a ver. Yo me esperaba un 3-0 de Solar Scarabs, la verdad. No sabe comer, no sé comer, tío. Que no sé comer, loco, no sé comer. En plan, me tienen que dar de comer. Vale, sacadme ya de aquí, quiero cenar, por favor, tío. Deja de trolearme, Solar Troll de mierda. Este tío es un normal, tío. Es que por payaso, tío.
set to the
Y yo,
Solar
gracias,
Scarabs.
loco.
This was one
Madre
of the
mía,
most
tío.
important matchups in Group B. Solar Scarabs and the Oni Warriors the closest in skill level, meaning that
Mira,
whoever
Nika la
won this one
adució la
likely
can
does
también.
stamp their ticket to move on to the next phase. That's tough stuff. Now the Oni Warriors have to look for upsets. They need to
No
take
puedo
out
más,
the
tío.
Wolves or the Leviathan.